where are the low value men? Like, what are all the low value men up to during these trying times? Because the high value men, I know they're around. They won't shut the fuck up. Low value men, I have not heard a word out of. I'm starting to think I'm on their side. I think I want one of those. I want a low value man. They don't make podcasts. I haven't seen one low value man make a podcast. Do they not know how to use microphones? Maybe that's a good thing. That's hot. All right, I've never seen a man use a microphone for good.
Until now, everybody buckle up. It's low value mail time with your host, Danny Polishchuk. What's happening, everybody? Welcome back. Is this line on the screen for everybody else, or is this just me? Welcome back to an all-new episode of Low Value Mail. On this, what the hell is this line? I think it's just... Oh, there we go. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to an all-new episode of Low Value Mail on this Monday, November 11th, 2024. It's a biggie. So tell your friends. Tell your friends. Joining us in the second hour of the show tonight, we have Mark Gober. He's the author of An End to Upside Down Thinking, An End to Upside Down Living, An End to Upside Down Liberty, An End to Upside Down Contact, An End to Upside Down Reset, An End to Upside Down Medicine, and An End to Upside Down Cosmos. And he is the host of the podcast, Where Is My Mind? He's quite a prolific author, as you might imagine. And he will be joining us in 1 hour. So stick around for that. We got a good episode. Just waiting for everybody to get in here. Glad to have you all. How is everybody feeling? I imagine most of you are feeling pretty good right now. That would be my guess. A lot of you are feeling pretty nice. Some of you are bummed. But we got a lot to talk about. So, it's 1 week later. Donald Trump is the president-elect of the United States. Hoo boy. And he gets the mandate. And that's not a gay thing. It sounds like it could be a gay thing. Two guys just going on a date. But no. It's not. He got the whole kit and caboodle, if you will. He's got... I'm curious how effective, because again, I'm not like some political expert by any sense. I don't know the inner workings of the United States federal government. I'm not going to pretend to, but it seems like a lot of the shit that was holding him back last time is kind of, a bit out of the way. He's been pretty busy right now, and I want to hear your thoughts. We're going to be opening the phone lines probably 30 minutes. We're going to, 2-3 calls in before we bring on our guests at the top of the hour. And I want to know what your thoughts are. And we'll have open phone lines at the end of the show as well for about half an hour as well. So don't worry if you don't get through then. We can talk about this stuff afterwards. So I'm not going to lie. I don't want to say I was surprised. Obviously, last week, I put in my prediction, and my gut was saying that the betting markets are just where it's at. The betting markets, this is kind of, it's where people put their money, and polls have all sorts of inefficiencies, but generally, people just put their money down, and the betting markets are right. The betting markets actually nailed it. I believe the betting markets had him winning every swing state. And they had him winning the popular vote. They had him winning the electoral college. And he did all of that. Obviously, my one thing was I thought that there might be some trickery going on that might get Kamala over the finish line. And, I haven't watched any of his stuff, but I've been seeing Alex Jones. I follow him on Twitter, now X. Shout out to anybody who's watching over on X. He seems to think that this isn't the most done deal in the world. We might have some fuckery, if you will, coming up. But there's some things I've been somewhat surprised about, specifically the lack of protests. Man, it's almost like people really did not like Kamala Harris. There's like this weird acceptance almost. Like, and again, I made a lot of predictions, and in the prediction game, you can expect to be wrong. Sometimes, for sure. But there's just this weird acceptance. Nobody's that, some people online are like, Handmaid's Tale, it's the end of the world. The same cast of characters, I guess. But anecdotally, people I speak with are just like, yeah, whatever. It's just what it is. I guess we're getting 4 more years of this. It'll be entertaining. At the very least, we're in for some entertainment. I did say that this election was basically, if Kamala wins, it's just the status quo. That's just what you're getting. We're doing the same shit for another 4 years. 8 years, actually, is what I said. 8 years. We'll be doing the same shit for another 8 years. But I think I really feel like a lot of people just deep down inside maybe don't want to admit this. But this was just the best path back to just some degree of normalcy, right? Like, we're just like, hey, remember how things used to just be kind of normal? And it's crazy to say this because obviously, he's such a divisive candidate. But I'm just talking about just in your everyday life. This is the path. Like, we could be like, hey, you know what? A man is not a woman. There's something different about them. Whereas Kamala Harris, she gets elected, and we have another 8 years of just being like, yeah, they're totally the same. No difference. None at all. Brittany Griner versus LeBron. Who's going to win that? I don't know. I don't know who's going to win that. So I think that's really just what it is. This is kind of this culmination of some members of society who were, I guess, just, able to exercise a high level of influence over everybody else. But a lot of this just had to do with this, in my opinion. This just like this man and woman shit. I know, obviously, Matt Walsh did his What Is a Woman movie, but if you think about it, Trump came in, right before Trump came in, like I was living in Canada, the Jordan Peterson with the preferred pronouns. This is how Jordan Peterson got so popular, because the government was like, hey, you have to say, like, if a man says they're a woman, you got to be like, yes, you're a woman, all this stuff. And then the Babylon Bee, it is crazy just like when you line up these things, but the Babylon Bee, they post their under Jack Dorsey's Twitter, under his reign, they post their little whatever article about, what was it exactly? I think it was Rachel Levine wins Man of the Year. And then their account got locked for transphobia or whatever, and they refused to delete it. And then that kind of laid the ground for Elon to buy Twitter. And here we are. I mean, it does feel like a bit of a sea change, if you will. It feels like it. It feels like things are kind of gonna open up again. I watched the news, not on Fox, but I was on Fox, if you caught that, on Saturday night on Fox News. But I watched, like, I'll go flip between like CNN and MSNBC just to see what's going on. And they just like say shit all the time on there now, which kind of like, I was like, I don't remember that happening. I'm not like, oh my God, I can't believe it. But it's just, I don't remember that. I don't remember them constantly just being like, shit, this, bullshit, all this stuff. They never used to say shit on the news. They were like better than that. And now they say shit all the time. If you haven't watched CNN recently, and I was just reading an article. It doesn't sound like anybody's watching this shit anymore. MSNBC had crazy high ratings for the election on Tuesday night. They beat CNN for the first time in some time for the election. CNN got smoked, absolutely smoked on election night. But MSNBC had super high ratings. But then the theory behind that is everybody was just watching it for the meltdown. They weren't watching it because they're avid. It was almost like Fox News people were like, you know what? This will be way more entertaining if I watch Trump win on MSNBC. And they were right. They were right. Fox News had huge ratings. And like there is this, like I was just reading about ratings right now. MSNBC had basically their two worst days in like 10 years, Thursday and Friday. Some shows getting like 300,000 views. Like I know people who have podcasts who get more views than MSNBC at 1/100th of the production cost. I don't know. What does Rachel Maddow make a year? $10 million? Something crazy. Like these people make huge money. Nobody's watching them. Fox News, though, is on the come up big time. And it is interesting because everything's just flipped. Like everything has flipped. By the way, I have this. I got to check the chat just to make sure. I always have this thing because I don't have the chat because it distracts me. But then I'm talking and go, what if like my audio is not working? And then everybody's like, yo, we can't hear you. And I've just been literally just talking to nobody. Shout out to whoever the new member is. Apophis. Welcome to the channel. But everything's just flipped. Like Fox News. Oh, thanks, Mark. Producer Mark, everybody telling me the audio is fine. I'm not even worried about the audio being fine. I'm literally like, is it even on? Right? Because I'm the fucking Wizard of Oz over here. I got tons of cranks and levers. You guys should see the fucking disaster that is this studio right now. We got wires everywhere. But, yeah, like Fox News used to be not that long ago. That was just like the punching bag, you know? That was like, oh, you should see the wild, you know, the lies they're saying. Now Fox News is honestly, they're just the normal one. They flipped. Their ratings are super high. They're crushing MSNBC. They're crushing CNN, which, you know, absolutely was not the case for the first Trump election, 2016, 2015. Like, I don't think, you know, I definitely the two combined would kill them. Now I think Fox News even combined is beating MSNBC and CNN. So the mainstream media is getting completely just reorganized before our eyes. They lose fortune, like just tons of money they're going to lose. If RFK gets his little pharma ad ban, that might be the end of it. I mean, the late night hosts were all fucking crying. Jimmy Kimmel crying. Like, you're fucking crying again? Again? Like, you know what? I'm not even going to excuse crying ever from a host of a comedy show. But I'll give you, like, just to be the most charitable, I'll say you could cry in 2016. 2016, you were like, oh, we don't know what's going to happen. This is so scary. He's never been in office. He had 4 years, okay? He already did the 4 years. The time for tears, it's over. No more tears. No more crying on comedy shows. Hopefully that's part of Project 2025. Project 2025, one of the main things. No more crying on comedy shows. You want to be a fucking soap opera? You want to be The View? You could cry on The View, okay? Put Jimmy Kimmel, Seth Meyers, Stephen Colbert, give them a fucking show. It's at 2 p.m. during the day when nobody's going to watch it because every guy's at work. Who the fuck watches The View? I guess there are a lot of women who just sit home all day. I don't know. I have no idea. But this is an interesting one. It seems like should Trump play his cards right here, should things work out for him, this could potentially be a 12-year run for the Republicans. Like, if he does the stuff that he is saying he's going to do, which is a lot of shit. Like, the stuff that he is promising right now is crazy. Because usually, I guess that the Democrats just like went so far. That's kind of the deal with conservatives, is they're like, we're going to bring it back, right? We're like, hey, you guys did too much shit. We're going to have to undo a lot of this stuff. But they're doing a lot of shit, right? And there's still some weird stuff with this election. California somehow, as of this recording, has only counted 72% of their votes. It's been almost a week. How is that possible? I mean, I understand how it's possible. Every one of you is like, yeah, do you know how fucking shithole California is? Like, you know, this just bureaucracy that they have going on there where, you know, they can't figure out how to count. 72%? That's like, we're talking millions of votes. Millions of votes, right? And there's a lot of left-wing conspiracy theories. They were going hard last week, like on Wednesday, when everybody was like, she's got like 10, 12 million less votes than Biden. What's going on? Where are all these people? And then a lot of people were like, yeah, keep asking these questions, and you might figure out what happened in 2020. However, I am not on, although that was fun. That was a fun time to be like, hey, keep looking into this, and you'll see that, because people are like, oh, are all these people dead? And they're like, yeah, they were dead then, and they're dead now. But I actually don't believe that. I don't believe that, because a lot of people did think that they're like, yeah, there's this huge discrepancy because they stole the 2020 election, which maybe they did. I'm not going to comment on this because I don't know how chill YouTube is right now, but probably is going to get a little more chill. Probably is going to get a little more chill. But yeah, it seems like once it's all said and done, she's probably going to have like 5 million less votes. And it seems like the turnout is going to be close to identical. And everybody's saying, you know, like, this was, you know, a blowout. And obviously, you know, when you score it up, you're like, you know, yes, this was a demolition, but she's probably going to win by like 4 million votes, 5 million votes, something like that. Or she's going to lose, 4 or 5 million votes. It's not going to be the, you know, there was people like, oh man, she's down 20 million votes. It's not going to be 20 million votes or 20 million less voters. I think from, you know, what I've been reading, it's going to be about this, pretty much the same as 2020. She's just going to get less votes. I guess there are going to be some people who just didn't want to vote. Maybe some of the pro-Palestine people, the people who are kind of disillusioned with the whole war. They go, you know what, we're not voting for anybody. And good job. Let's see how that works out for you. Although, you know what? Maybe Trump does, you know, just, he goes, hey boys, fun's over. We're not doing this. If anybody could do it, I mean, she wasn't going to do that shit. She definitely wasn't going to do that shit, but he might be able to. He might, you know, it seems like he's shutting the door on Ukraine. Hamas came out and said that they're looking into ending the war day after the election. Qatar said that the Hamas heads can't stay in Qatar anymore. They're like, we don't care where you go, but you can't stay here. But there are a lot of left-wing conspiracy theories. One thing I really haven't seen brought up, too, because there's obviously now that everybody's doing the postmortem on this thing, and they're like, you know, Biden would have done better than Harris. Wasn't the whole deal, though, that Biden, he was like, I'm a bridge candidate. He's like, it was weird that he was even going to go for the second term, because when he came in, the deal was that he was only a one-term president. He was old, and they'd go, we just got to get through these 4 years just so it's not Trump, and that's it, right? Like that was the deal. And then I guess he kind of broke the deal. He doesn't seem too pumped about any of this. But yeah, Kamala Harris, terrible candidate. Lots of left-wing conspiracy theories, though, which I'm enjoying a lot. I'm going to say conspiracy theories. There used to be some apolitical conspiracy theories. For example, you know, aliens, UFOs, was one where you go, yeah, you could meet somebody and they like, if they said that they were into UFOs, that wouldn't be a tell on their political affiliation, right? Like, you could be like, oh yeah, you could be whatever. I have no idea. You could be a Kamala, like it was similar to jam bands. Like back in the day, not even back in the day, 10 years ago, if someone was like, yeah, I like the Grateful Dead, you're like, that's a liberal. Now, not the case at all. It kind of brings out everybody, right? But there's a couple of conspiracies. The main left-wing conspiracies, my favorite one currently going on, because there are some people who are hanging out hope that Kamala Harris is still going to win. Can you believe that? Some people are literally like, I ain't hear no bell. It ain't over till it's over. And I mean, we are, couple months away. A lot can happen. I don't know if anything will happen, but things theoretically could happen. But there's this Starlink conspiracy. People on the left, all these Kamala heads, if you will. Basically, a lot of these polling stations were using, I guess, Starlink for internet, and obviously Elon Musk is pals with Donald Trump. Some would say got Donald Trump elected. What a return on investment that guy is going to get on the $130 million he spent, huh? That could have gone so wrong for him, man. That guy would have been public enemy number one. He would have had every fucking Democratic politician coming after him. The whole just weight of the system just bear that dude would have willfully gone back to South Africa or Canada or some shit. I don't know. But there's all these people being like, they were using Starlink and where they were counting the votes, and then the Starlink, like they hacked the Starlinks, and like the votes are so they're basically saying like the votes are not valid and we need to recount because anywhere they're using Starlink was obviously like meddled with by Trump and Elon Musk. So they're the left-wing people. They're getting in the conspiracy game, which is fun. Welcome to the conspiracy game. And then there's still tons of people with the assassination attempt. There was actually at a comedy show the other night on the weekend. There was some comic was like talking to the audience, something about conspiracy theories, and then one guy's like, "Yeah, like I don't think the assassination attempt in Butler was real. I think that was totally staged assassination attempt." Which the fucking cojones on you to do that. Again, that is pure nonsense, but it's fun. It's fun that they're getting in on the game. It's almost like they've been deprived of it because InfoWars, was the spot. And then that just became like a right-wing thing. So then, if any silver lining to this whole thing is that Democrats get to enjoy conspiracies now. So that is something, I suppose. And it will, I'm very interested, to see how much Trump is going to be able to get done. What percentage? Mark says lefties invented conspiracy theory. Maybe they invented it, but it wasn't considered their domain. Like for the last, however many years. Yeah, they might have invented it. I don't know. Yeah, probably lefties invented. They probably invented the term conspiracy theory around the whole JFK thing. Fair enough. Right. But like in the last 20 years, you're like, if someone's a conspiracy theorist, yeah, the Weather Underground. Right. But if someone's a conspiracy theorist in the last 20 years, they're not, you almost guaranteed you're like, that guy's right wing. That girl's right wing. Like that wasn't the domain of the left. So anyways, they get to come back. They get to come back on that. Trump has promised a lot. I was just watching Kash Patel, who they're saying might be the new head of the CIA. He's just like, we're fucking declassifying everything. Everything's coming out. JFK, 9/11, Epstein's Black Book, all that shit. He's like, it's all coming out. Day one. He's like, we're doing just day one, all of that stuff. Which, if he can do it, that'd be incredible. I would love to see Elon. I said it last week, but I'd love to see Elon Musk just start slashing government jobs. I like the idea of them being like, yeah, we don't need the Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C. That could be in Iowa. So you want to keep your job? That's fine. You just got to move from one of the most affluent neighborhoods in Washington, D.C. to Des Moines. Is that in Iowa? I think it is. You just got to go to Iowa. And a lot of those people will be like, I don't want to go to fucking Iowa. I don't want to move to Iowa. I live in D.C. And they go, sucks. Anyways, that's what we're doing. So enjoy it. But they got a lot going on. Like if Trump can pull off even half of the stuff he's promising, we could see we can see some cool shit happen. The mass deportation thing, which has been a big big topic the last few days. That will be the thing that I think most people will watch, and that's going to be a tough one to actually thread the needle. And I don't say tough one, like, yeah, you can brute force this thing, just start mass deporting people. I still don't really get how it works, to be honest, because it seems like, and I'm going to be opening up the phone lines in a few minutes. Don't worry. We're going to get to you. Nobody call in. But the mass deportation, actually, you know what? I'll open the phone lines now. I'll open the phone lines right now. Just please hold, and I will do my best to get to as many of you as possible before the break. But the mass deportation thing will be difficult. I don't know how you find, because obviously there's all these people who are just, murderers and shit who just are in America right now. I don't know how you find them. It seems like normally deportations, you have to get involved with law enforcement in some capacity, getting arrested or something, and then they deport you. They can't just start knocking on people's doors. And I know they have this new guy, Homan, the Homan. And, he's got some ideas. I think nobody's going to have a problem deporting criminals. Nobody, maybe the furthest people on the left will be like, you can't. Nobody is illegal. You can't deport the criminals. Where will they go? Right? Like that whole shit. But, and nobody will have a problem with that. But when they start doing the thing where they're like, hey, we're deporting this 7-year-old's parents because they're illegal. And I don't know if they'll ever even get to that point. That might be the kind of thing where they're like, you know what, we're going to, if we can get rid of 1 million people who are criminals, I don't know if there even are that many. God knows how many of them even are here. Period. It's, I can't even, I don't think anybody knows. Some people are like, it's 10 million. Some people are like, it's 40 million. Oh, what's going on here? Oh, how are these people? Oh, whoops. I forgot to put a setting on here. Here we go. My bad. We got to mute everybody. There we go. Forgot that one setting. Oops. But yeah, anyways, I don't know how they go ahead and deport. But when they start deporting people, like, yeah, there's a 7-year-old and she's legal and her parents are illegal. And they go, well, and the guy's like, we'll deport her too. We'll keep the families together. I don't know if even a lot of Republicans are going to have the stomach for that one. I don't know. I don't know that they will when that shit starts happening. And maybe he doesn't even do it. Maybe he's just like, you know what? We're not trying to get people who've been here for 20 years, even though they're illegal, which are probably millions of people like that. Millions. There must be millions and millions of people who have been here for decades who are not legal. But also the sanctuary city thing. All the, most of the illegals, like I live, I'm in New York City here, sanctuary city, even though they just said Trump gets elected and they go, yeah, no more gift cards. That's over. Gift cards are done. Right? But like LA, New York, Chicago, sanctuary cities, they're not going to cooperate. And now I know they can maybe cut some funding from them or whatever, but for this to really work, you need like local police to be involved for this to work and not cost a fortune. And it's fine if it costs a fortune. This country wastes so much fucking money on so many dumb things, even if it does cost a ton of money, and that is the will of the people. But that will be the one thing, in my opinion, where they're like the mass deportation thing, because everybody's like fucking amped. I'm sure the chat right now is just like, fuck that. Deport them all. Deport them all. Every single one of them. And, and I said this, or I say this having also just said that the mainstream media is kind of losing a bit of their grip on things, but they're going to frame this as a very emotional thing. They're going to make sure you're going to see video of children crying as they're put in the back of like a fucking paddy wagon or like boarding a ice plane back to whatever country they're from. And so anyways, maybe all I'm saying is maybe leave that for JD Vance's like second term. Although again, that's 8 years away. So, but yeah, definitely getting rid of the criminals. They will have no issue with that. But if they start going hard on just breaking up families, I think they will lose. They will lose some people. And, there'll be protests. There'll be huge protests. AOC, man, she's going to be fucking out there. She is going to be. But the Homan, I can't remember what's his first name. That dude is a badass, man. If that guy showed up to my house, I'll just be like, say no more. Going back to Canada. And speaking of Canada, that's where they're all going. All these people, again, nobody has any real sympathy for people who are here illegally, who broke the first thing they did when they came to this country was break the law. Even though I know, some people like that. I mean, there used to be a big thing with comedians from Canada where they would just come down here illegally. They'd be like, yeah, I'm going to Buffalo for the day. And then they just live here for fucking 8 years or some shit. Right. But again, the first thing you did coming into this country, which is not your country, and you have to respect the laws of any country you go to, is they broke the law. And I think a lot of these people are going to Canada. They're going to go sneak into fucking Canada. And I know we have a lot of Canadians who watch the show who are not going to be pumped about this. Because I believe the Canadian population, when I left Canada 5 years ago, I believe the population was like 37 million, maybe 38. We're at 42, I believe I read today. It's a lot. It's a lot more people. And hey, if you get, if you think you have a real good chance of getting rounded up and deported, you're just like, yeah, I'm fucking going to Canada. I'm going to walk over, and where's that area in Quebec? Somewhere, and you go, yeah, I'm just going to go hide out in Canada. Justin Trudeau's ain't sending you anywhere. He is not going to send anybody anywhere. But if they do decide to go next level and they start enforcing this on on an immigration not an immigration standpoint, on an employment standpoint, where they say, look, you can't employ illegals. You can't. And look, if you live in New York City, man, there's tons. If they were able to snap their fingers and just get rid of them all overnight, it would be economically not good. I don't think it would be good. This needs to be a gradual thing. There would be restaurants just shutting, everybody's it's a casually understood thing in New York City. You go, yeah, the whole backbone, you go in the back of every restaurant. None of those people are here legally. I mean, DoorDash, Uber Eats. I don't know how they fucking do that. Because it doesn't make sense that you're getting a visa or a green card to come here to just deliver Uber Eats. So then I assume, whenever I have an Uber Eats, I'm I assume they're not here legally. But then I'm how does Uber allow them to do it? I don't know. Maybe you know. We're going to get to some calls in a second. I just will say this. I love the idea of the tech bros taking a crack at the government. Because this is the first time, right? The tech bros have just been building all the products that we use every day. All that stuff, they're just building shit, making money. And now we're giving them a crack at the federal government. You got David Sachs, Elon, Vivek. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of other people in the mix there, but it will be cool to see. Or it'll be a huge disaster and they'll be sabotaged. And then in 4 years, they're going to be look, this is what happens when you get these fucking tech bros. Mass deportations. We had 10 million illegals accidentally killed or some shit. I don't know. But anyways, that's all I'm going to say. Let's take some calls. Before I take some calls, please like and subscribe to the channel. If you're an audio listener, make sure to follow the podcast, leave a review. And if you'd like to support the show, which means a lot to me, you can join the channel like some have done tonight. You get access to the after show, Low Value Mail Overtime, which will be happening tonight at 11:30 p.m. We're going to cover all the articles, a bunch of articles that I didn't get to. You have an opportunity to suggest articles that I will cover. We're going to cover the 4B movement, where a bunch of gross chicks are not banging anymore. The FBI investigating all those racist text messages, much more. And your support also, if you're an audio listener of this show, you obviously get ads. If you sign up for the Patreon, patreon.com/lowvaluemail, MAIL, $5 a month, no ads. It seems like a no-brainer, but You do you. I know money's tight right now, but it ain't going to be for long. Not under Papa Trump. And we'll be back tomorrow night with a new episode of The Bathhouse. We are back 9 p.m. We got Joey B. Tunes, Mike Racine, and Chris Scopo. So that'll be that should be a really fun one. And then if you want to see me live, and I recommend if you do live in Albany or Hartford or anywhere nearby, December 4th and 5th, come check me out. Tickets at dannycomedy.com. All right, let's take some calls before the break. Holy shit, there's a lot of you. I am not going to get to most of you, but we'll get to more of you after the guest. First call of the night, and we're getting you in order because this is a goddamn democracy over here. Hello, you're on Low Value Mail. Who am I speaking with?
Hello, Danny. It's Tim. Nice to talk to you again.
Tim, what's up, buddy?
It's going all right. I got to say, right off the bat, the Kamala Harris deepfake was, I think, the best thing you've ever made in your whole life.
Thank you. I was at, literally, I did Fox News with Jimmy Fallon the other night, if anybody caught that, on Saturday night, and then we were, like, having drinks afterwards.
I did watch it, and that was another thing I wanted to bring up.
Yeah, and then his agent... Well, anyways, but his agent afterwards was like, have you seen this video? I'm like, yeah, I made it. But it was like, because so many people like reposted it from their account. So it was like, he's like, have you seen this video? But it was from someone else's account. So I was like, yeah, that's mine. I mean, he goes, what? I was just steal it.
I was visiting my mother, and it was like, she's a big Trumper.
Yeah.
We all are. I think so. And I was sitting with her. It was literally the minute you posted it.
Okay.
And my phone dinged. And I showed it to her like it was real, I go, look, Kamala Harris is getting here. And she's looking at it like, oh, yeah. And she's looking at it like, oh, my gosh. And then when she said, like, fuck you or whatever, she was like, oh. And then she turned to me, though, and I'm grinning like a Cheshire cat. And she's like, oh, this is...
Yeah, if you're of a certain age... If you're of a certain age, you have no ability to discern deepfakes, in my opinion. Almost none.
Okay, so let me get to a few things I want to talk about. I know it's a new show. I love it. Time is precious now, though.
Yeah, and we'll have more time from 11 to 11:30 for more calls, too. So
okay,
go ahead. Just
what do you think about Trump's cabinet?
So far, I saw he just picked Marco Rubio, I believe, for Secretary of State.
I did see that.
I
believe so.
Yeah, that I don't know about. It seems like people are fairly happy. It is interesting, though, that, like, Twitter, like, kind of has a say on this right now. Like, the kind of influential, like, people on Twitter, and I guess, the conservative, like, the Mike Pompeo thing was like, no Pompeo was trending. And then he's just like, yeah, I'm not picking Mike Pompeo. And that's that.
Let me ask you this. Do you think, Tulsi Gabbard and Vivek and RFK will all actually end up in his cabinet?
I think Tulsi Gabbard and Vivek for sure. It's unclear what role, from like what I've read with RFK, like he'll definitely have a say. I don't know if he's going to get, like they're saying, health and safety or whatever, like HHS. I don't know if he'll be the head of that. They were talking about Vivek for all sorts of stuff. I don't know how it works with like qualifications, but the Kash Patel thing for head of the CIA would be crazy. Just watching. Yeah,
I don't know about any of that.
Yeah, just watching his interviews. If he gets head of the CIA, that is insane, because that guy seems like the type of guy you interview him at a burger place and he's just like, I hate burgers and I want to bring the burger industry down, and then you're like, okay, we're gonna hire you. So.
Did you hear about the guy who he's named the border czar?
Homan. Homan. That's what I was just talking about. That guy is like, that's what I was saying. That dude,
wild.
Yeah, he's wild. That guy is gonna That guy's going to do some shit. I mean,
he's wild.
Again, they caused a serious problem. So I'm just saying they caused a serious issue. So it's like, yeah, you fucked up so bad with this, letting all these people in, not vetting them, where you're like, yeah, this is who you get now. Like, you can't have some soft person come in.
There's a great video of him in, I guess, Congress talking to AOC.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, you want to separate families? he's like, I mean, if you commit a crime,
yeah, he's like, if they commit a crime,
you get separated from your family.
Yeah, he's just like, when I'm a cop, he's like, if I pull you over and you have a DUI and you're driving with your kids, he's like, you get separated from your family. Yeah, that's how that works. Like, if you commit a crime, you get separated from your family. But then he was in his
my favorite thing
in his 60 Minutes interview.
My favorite thing was,
yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, in his 60 Minutes interview, they're like, so then if you deport parents, like, what about family deportations? He's like, ideally we'll just deport them together, essentially alluding to, like, if you have,
it's the exact same thing he said. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, if you have legally, like, if you have American children, but the parents are not American, he's like, yeah. We'll just deport them all. And I don't know how that works, because if the child's American, theoretically they don't have citizenship to the country that they're getting shipped out to. So,
Danny, didn't you read Project 2025? We're going to lock all the gays and illegals in cases.
Yeah, of course. Just like Obama, did. Yeah. So
absolutely. Yeah. So the last thing I want to ask you.
Yeah.
And then I'll let you go, because I know I'm taking up too much of your time.
Yeah.
When are you going on Rogan?
Whenever he asks me, man. Whenever he asks me. I don't know if he doesn't like that I make all those deep fakes of him, but actually I only made the one with him and Kamala Harris.
I think he's gotta like it.
No, I think he likes them too.
I had Ryan on.
Yeah.
You're better, and I don't want to say better, you know what I mean? But I think that with your deep fakes, you are making a cultural impact.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, I won't turn it down, I'll tell you that much. But yeah, I mean, he follows he follows me on Instagram. Like, he followed me recently on Instagram, but no, I haven't heard from him. But I'll tell you, the moment he asks me, I will be there.
Well, you know what? God bless you, Danny, and I'll let you go.
Thanks, buddy. Take care. To everyone. All right, let's take another call here, and we'll get to these in order. Okay, we got Conspiracy Extremist on the line. Hello. Oh, what happened here? Yo.
Hello.
Hey, what's up, man?
Yeah. Hello. Hey, how's it going, Danny?
Good. How are you?
Your favorite conspiracy extremist?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
So my first question is, who did you vote for and how many times?
I voted one for Kamala Harris, one for Trump, just in case they get in too much trouble, and then I'll be like, hey, guys, it didn't really affect anything. It was just a goof. I was just testing the integrity of the election system. Did you see the two ladies? Did you see the two ladies? I believe it was actually in Arizona. These two ladies, I guess probably getting fired up from the internet, they went and illegally voted to they basically went and like stole a bunch of ballots to see, like, because I guess, everybody's like, yeah, it's so easy to do it, all this stuff. So then they went and stole a bunch of ballots and sent them in. But they do have, like, when you vote, so I guess the main thing is you don't have to show ID, but you have to sign your ballot, right? And I guess they have a registry of your signatures that they match the ballots against. And so they were like nowhere near the signatures, and they found both of these chicks, and they're like charging them with like serious crimes because the two of them were like, yeah, it's so easy to vote. Watch this. And you're like, yeah, it was, except you didn't get the signatures right, and now you're going to jail for probably 10 years.
So I got to break like my normal character for a minute, and not that I'm a good actor or anything, but so really. So I had filled out my ballot ahead of time. We get mail-in ballots filled out and we drop it off on election day. And I had written in Tower Gang Toad as a gag on my show. Yeah. I really was going to do it, but I'm like, damn, I actually do want to vote for Trump for the first time. So I went and dropped off my wife's ballot, and I said, no, I'm going to actually like vote in person. And it's paper ballots, and you scan them, and I do think our like Arizona's elections, the way they count them is really messed up. Like, but it's not as.
Are they even done? Are they even done counting?
I don't think so. I think it was like 92% last time I checked.
I guess those are the mail. Those are what, the mail-in ballots? They're still in the mail or some shit. I don't know.
I don't know. Every other state figures it out. I do think there's a lot of corruption, but when they say like, oh, we need paper ballots, I literally filled in a paper ballot and scanned it in. So I'm not sure what they're really talking about.
I know Chris Vega, we did the election night special for the Boys Cast. He was telling me his friend had a paper ballot, but in New York, I think state, he always writes in a candidate or votes for like a third party, and there were no third parties on the ballots. So then he didn't know when you write it in, if you have to write in the vice president as well. And there was like no service where he was at the polling station. So then he just voted for Kamala Harris because he's like, I'm not sure if I have to know the vice president candidate, like if you have to write both of them in. And then there was only 2 options to vote for on the ballot, which is kind of fucked up. Because then you go to some states and you're like, RFK's on the ballot in like 20 states or something. He got more votes than fucking Chase Oliver.
Oh yeah. Chase Oliver, he's terrible.
Yeah.
And it like on my ballot, there was when you write it like a write-in candidate, there's write-in for president, and then there's an option for write-in for vice president to go with them. So you can choose whoever you want.
Yeah, I never saw the ballot, but that's what I was told by Chris about his friend. But yeah.
Yeah.
But anyways,
so it's kind of blown.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No.
I think it's blown out of proportion. I think people exaggerate. Like, it is paper ballot, so at least here, I do think there's a lot of corruption, obviously. But I think the corruption is more like in the counting phase, like not the actual filling out the ballot.
Right.
Thing.
Well, did you see?
What I mean?
Did you see the map of every state that has no voter ID laws or like lax voter ID laws are all blue?
Oh yeah, they're all blue.
Like it's like literally, it's just like every blue state, no voter ID laws. Every red state, voter ID laws.
Of course, yeah. And what's interesting is that I think it's not even like they're having illegals vote, honestly, because I'm pretty sure most illegal people are probably conservative, and I don't think they're going to be like, oh, I'm going to vote blue, and that's not what they're thinking about. They're crossing illegally and they're trying to like figure shit out. I think it's just to.
I mean, a lot of them don't speak English. Like I come across a lot of people who I assume in New York City are illegals because like all the people who sell like fruit on the sidewalks and in the subways, like I can't imagine they're here legally. Like they don't speak English. They're probably the last thing they're trying to like literally like feed their families tonight. Like I can't imagine they're concerned about fucking voting.
And Mexicans, for the most part, are far more conservative than Americans.
Yeah.
Every illegal Mexican that I know, I mean, they don't think gays should be legal. Like, seriously.
Well, they're probably bummed when they get here and they go, they're doing what now in this country?
Yeah, seriously, I've met, like, in my line of work and just being in Arizona, like, I do come across with a lot of Hispanics who don't speak English. Luckily, I speak a little Spanish. So, like, when I interact with them, like, they don't comprehend this thing. That's not part of their culture at all. So
yeah.
I think there is some, there is a little bit of a shock when they get
They're
here.
just
So
here for the economy. They're here for the economic benefits, and it's understandable. I don't like, again, I've always said this, if I was in their position and I could just walk into America, I would do the exact same fucking thing. It's like, hey, do you want to wait 12 years for a fucking green card, or do you just want to walk over? You know, I'll just walk over.
100%. And I think if Trump does start deporting people, I think he shouldn't start with the Mexicans. He should start with the Canadians. I think that would be their priority.
There's probably, honestly, if I could guess, if I had to put a number on the number of illegal Canadians in this country, I bet it would be like 5,000.
That's too many.
Yeah, I bet it's low versus, you know, the 20
Danny,
million.
I do got to ask you, so are you, because I listened to your open monologue, and I think you did like a boys cast after the election or during the election.
Yeah, we did a live stream.
What is your thoughts? Like, are you like, is it you think it's a good thing, or what are your thoughts about the results?
Yeah, I think it's good that it's not contested, that we don't have to deal with like tons of lawsuits and, you know, both sides being like, you know, it was stolen. And I mean, it would have been, if Trump lost by like a tiny margin, it's like, it would have been chaos for the next couple months and maybe even after that. So in that regard, I definitely think it's good. I definitely preferred Trump to win over Kamala Harris, just because, like I said, I want to see the tech bros take a crack at the government. You know, like I have a soft spot for these tech bros. I like that they like actually build shit, and you know, they're from the ones that I've met in my life, like they're generally like pretty sharp guys, pretty smart. They're not about wasting money on bullshit. Like they're, you know, fiscally fairly responsible. And I just want to see what they can do. And again, maybe 4 years from now, we're like, yeah, that did not work out well, but whatever. We'll see. I think it's better. I think it's better for comedy. I think it's better for culture.
Well, you're a crypto guy too. And I mean, holy moly.
I was a crypto guy.
Until that Jew.
Sam Bankman-Fried stole all my fucking money. Anyways, patreon.com/slowvaluemail. No, I was. I mean, crypto's going ham. Although I will say, not to scare anybody, but my wife tonight was like, "Should we buy Bitcoin?" I'm like, "You're saying this now when it hits 90K?
No.
Now's the time to buy Bitcoin." So I would call that a contrary signal for anybody who's looking to buy Bitcoin. And again, time frame is a big element of this. If you're like, I'm going to buy it for the next 20 years, sure. But when my wife is like, we should buy Bitcoin, probably a short-term top, in my opinion.
Yeah. You're not supposed to buy it when it's at its all-time high.
Well, I mean, Michael Saylor does. He just buys it when it's whatever price, and he's fucking cleaning the fuck up. So maybe she'll be right. I mean, if you bought it at an all-time high, at any point, you're up a ton. So it's just, it's so volatile, and, you know, you never know what could happen. But again, it's the people around him seem to be super pro crypto. So I can't imagine Trump's going to be the guy cracking down on crypto. Right?
No. Well, I mean, the indicators show that. I mean, there's obviously, it wouldn't be going up if people thought he would be.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think
I like crypto.
He's good for the economy. Yeah. I mean, I like Bitcoin. It was just all stolen from me. So I had a bunch, and now it's gone. And I learned some things, and that's life. That is life. All right, I gotta let you go. I'm gonna take one more call before the break here. But
all right, man, have a good one.
Later. Conspiracy extremists, everybody. Shout out to Eric Watson and Apophis again, and Benny the Jet for the super chat. Appreciate you. Okay, we're gonna take one more call, and then we are going to get to the guest. One moment, please. Oh, hello. You're on Low Value Mail. Who am I speaking with?
Hey, did I actually make it through?
Yes, you did.
All right. Danny, I was just at your comedy show with Corrine on Tuesday.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that was a fun time.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Really funny.
Yeah, it was a good time.
Yeah. I was honestly curious. So, like, I didn't really know anything about Corrine until I saw you advertising on your IG, and so I showed up for that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like, Corrine
Fischer, if you don't know, host of the Guys We Fucked podcast, and Without a Country.
Yeah. Well, it was like, her IG was like, wow, like really traumatized and stuff after the election. And,
yeah, I mean, she's like a pretty hardcore liberal. And you know, she's a woman, and she's very much like women lost their rights. Although again, I don't know what rights women lost, and I will still concede, like I'm not a pro-life guy. Like I do see the shit that, you know, it gets spoken about anecdotally, where you're like, yeah, that really would suck. You know, if you're in one of those like red states, and you know, they all of a sudden are like, you can't get abortions, or they're difficult, or, you know, like 6 weeks in some states is like, I don't know. Like, I think that is way too low. I do sympathize, because obviously chicks are like, stop telling us what to do. But then, you know, you see doctors who give abortions, and they're like, yeah, 95% of the abortions we give are like 15 weeks or more, and they're just purely elective. And you go, like, I understand both sides of the equation. I'm sure if I was a chick, I wouldn't be super pumped. And I honestly thought if Kamala won, it was going to be over this abortion issue specifically.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
Yeah.
I thought it was funny though, just like in the exit polling, like it actually shows like how few like women cared about it, essentially, unless like you're basically in your 20s, 30s and living in a big city.
Yeah, but again, you're like, Corrine lives in New York, so like I'm pretty sure they codified abortions into the like New York State Constitution,
like post-birth.
I don't know about post-birth, but you know, like nobody in New York is like, oh shit, I can't get an abortion now. It's just in these specific states, and you know, America is set up where it's kind of like 50 different countries, and you know, it's like they all just kind of govern themselves, and the federal government's meant to stay out of it as much as possible. So, like, I understand the whole like give it to the states, and states can decide, and lots of states are like, we're gonna have the most lax abortion laws. But if I was a woman living in like Texas or fucking Mississippi or even Florida, they had a ballot initiative. But again, it's like they had a ballot initiative in Florida and it didn't pass. So it's like the majority of people don't want that. And I'm sure that's lots of women.
Well, they got to reach 60% in Florida, but you know, maybe next time they'll get to 60%.
Yeah, is that what they needed? 60%? Is that where you live?
Yeah, they got like I think they got like 56. They need 60.
They need.
It's
60.
the same with the weed measure. I think they got like 57 at the weed measure or something.
Yeah. So there you go. You know, it's like most, although I guess I didn't realize it was 60. I thought you had to get a majority. So I guess a majority of people do want it, and you need like more than a majority, which I guess that does kind of suck. But, and you know, again, it's like to say, hey, go move somewhere else. You're like, it's not that fucking easy. You're like, not everybody wants to go move somewhere else over their inability to get an abortion. So in that regard, I am somewhat sympathetic to the whole thing. And again, I did think that Kamala Harris, if she won, was going to win for that specific reason. I did make a joke about it, though. I thought funny is that if women didn't shop so much, inflation wouldn't be so high. And then the economy wouldn't have been the biggest issue. And then she probably would have won if women just didn't be shopping so much. So yeah, it's a big L for women to be shopping. Stop buying shit you don't need.
Yeah, so my question was like behind the scenes, are you guys all like chilling stuff like after the election? Or
yeah, Corrine was at my.
To get a beer with her. Of
course, Corrine was at my.
Because you like taking an abortion in Texas.
Corrine was at my wedding. No, we're like very good friends. No, we're like again. She's not one of those people who are like, oh, I can't be friends with someone who has different political opinions than her. She has her opinions, and those are her opinions. And she's not like one of those psychos and we're actually going to cover. I have an article about this in the Overtime show, but about people who are basically being told to just cut off every person in their life and poison men. That's another one. But no, she's not like that at all. Corinne's the best. She's super cool. She's not like if it went, regardless of how it goes, she's just like it's not affecting her in that way. Like she's not.
She'll just have like 50 IG stories the next day.
Yeah, I mean, again, she's passionate about it, and that's her right. It's fucking America. Yeah. It's called the free speech, first goddamn amendment. She can think whatever she wants, but she's not one of those psychos who like it's like we can't be friends anymore, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways, all right, I gotta let you go. We gotta get to the break here, but appreciate it, man.
Good chatting.
All right, take care. All right, that's been the first hour of the show. We will be back after this short break with Mark Gober. This should be an interesting one. In the meantime, enjoy. And if you're on the line, you can hang up or you can stay on, whatever you want. But we're going to talk to Mark for a bit. So I'd say just probably hang up and you can call back. But in the meantime, enjoy all the AI sketches I made this week in one long compilation. Not that long, but we'll be back very shortly. We are back, everybody, from a short break. I hope you enjoyed all my stupid-ass AI videos that I've been cranking out all week. Joining me, welcome to the show, Mark Gober. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Danny. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, this is exciting. So you were recommended to me by producer Mark. And so you're quite the prolific author, right? You have we were talking about this. You have seven books you've written in the last basically 7 years, 6 years?
Roughly. Yeah,
Jesus,
roughly.
Jesus Christ, I still have a screenplay that I'm working on for probably 8 years. It'll get done one day though, I promise. If they ever start making movies again, comedy movies. But so basically, the theme of all your books is essentially upside down something, right? So I guess actually before we get to it, how did you get into, because you were like what, an investment banker essentially? You were working in like tech, and I was bigging up the tech. I don't know if you saw earlier in the show, but what do you think of all like the tech bros taking a crack at the federal government right now?
I'm trying to sort it all out because when I worked in the tech space, I worked in investment banking in New York, and then I worked in Silicon Valley advising tech-focused companies. So I was in that world, but most of the time I was there, I wasn't aware of let's just say, the broader deceptions that many of us are now seeing. So I wasn't looking for that back then. I had such a mainstream perspective, and this whole process started for me when I was listening to podcasts actually in 2016 while I was still working at my firm. And I started to question basically the nature of reality itself. Like, what's a human being? Is there any purpose to our lives? Is there a soul? What happens when we die? Like, big questions.
That's a funny thing. You're working at like a VC firm and you're like, what is the meaning? They're like, fuck off with all the meaning of this stuff. The meaning is just like, we're here to make money. I actually was thinking when I just said that, where I'm like, yeah, are you pumped about the tech bros? And then I do think about the venture capitalists who get involved. Like, you see them when they buy like Red Lobster and stuff, and they just gut the whole thing, break it down for its parts. And I go, I hope they don't do that with the federal government. That actually might be like, as I was saying that, I go, yeah, if they do that thing to the federal government, that won't be good.
Yeah, we'll see. Well, they're very practical, the investor types, because they've got to put their money to work properly and they've got to generate returns. So that's a good thing, but it does take the soul out of it a bit. And that's where I started to have a bit of conflict. I ended up leaving my firm because I was so much more interested in the other metaphysical stuff.
Sure. Which I'm sure they were like, what are you doing? Were you taking like, did you have a psychedelic experience or something?
No, it was just learning through a lot of reading. And then I worked with people who were claiming to have psychic abilities and things like that, because I was reading research that said there's scientific evidence for this stuff. So then I worked with a lot of different psychics, and not every single one of them knew things, but sometimes they did, and I couldn't explain it. So I had a lot of those like validation points that confirmed what I was reading. And it changed my whole life, basically. And it's led me on this path to not just question, is there a soul, but what's the nature of government? What's the nature of the cosmos? All these different paradigms that I hadn't thought about before.
And so what's like the most profound thing you've arrived at through all of this? Has it been like on the government side? Has it been more on like the metaphysical?
It's such a good question, because each little paradigm, they're not little, has been a major shift for me. But I would probably start with the first one, because I used to think that when you die, when your body dies and your brain shuts off, that's the end of your consciousness. That's the end of your experience of life. And I don't think that's true. I think our consciousness continues when the body dies. And that was earth shattering for me.
Yeah. And you have obviously like, all your books are like heavily sourced. Like this isn't just, you're not just like winging it on this stuff. So what is the stuff that kind of led you to that on?
Yeah. So my first book, it's called An End to Upside Down Thinking. And interestingly, Danny, when I wrote that book, I didn't know I was going to write other books. So to me, this was it. This was like the big paradigm shift. And I was going to keep going to my job, and I was going to make it as professional as possible, which I try to do with all my books, but I was still working in Silicon Valley. So if I'm going to write a book on the afterlife and things like that, it's got to be source cited, like you said. And the most compelling argument was actually there are many validation points, whether it's evidence of telepathic communication done in laboratory settings, or the US government doing psychic spying. It's called remote viewing, and they've got declassified documents that validate it. Or the University of Virginia studying children that claim to have memories of a life that is not their own, and the researchers can validate what the little kids say.
Like a past life?
Like it suggests a past life. I mean, all we can say with certainty is that children remember things of a life that's not their own. Many people will then jump and say they're talking about a past life. And that's what the researchers at UVA have often concluded too.
Interesting. Do you think there's some sort of current version of an MK Ultra going on? Like not maybe a drug based, but
I'm very suspicious of that, because the brainwashing is so intense. It's hard to rationalize as just being due to information. I think there's a lot of sophistication in the knowledge of the psyche, let's say, from government powers. And we know that MK Ultra was decades ago and how sophisticated that was. So you can only imagine what's being done now in ways that we probably can't pick up.
Right. Because I saw, I think on Rogan, Peter Thiel was on Rogan. He's like, there's no MK Ultra program, because if they were just drugging people right now, that information would eventually get out. But I had a guest on maybe a month ago, and he was talking about how he had been like, I don't even know if it was true or not, to be honest. I think it was very good chance it wasn't, but he was talking about this whole scenario where this guy was like an actor, and then he said that he was like roped up into, he was getting all these DMs from people who claiming to be like CCP dissidents and all this stuff, and then they got him to essentially like work with him, but for nothing. Like they weren't blackmailing him really, other than saying like they had him, a photo of him like banging his wife or girlfriend or something, but like nothing really crazy. But then he like says he got so down the almost like a Stockholm syndrome, and I was like, maybe that's some kind of like some sort of new level MK Ultra. I don't know, but there does seem to be a lot of like, I guess, psyops going on. I wonder if that's somehow the new version.
Yeah, I think it could be layered. Like you say, there's psyops or the media just manipulating people through fear, and that creates trauma. That's its own form of trauma-based mind control. But there might be subtler stuff, and this is just me guessing, like using frequencies to alter the mind, because we know the body seems to be sensitive to frequencies. So that would be something that we wouldn't see. Also, what I found in a lot of survivors of MK Ultra is that through various forms of torture that don't necessarily involve psychedelics, basically the mind becomes fragmented, and you can have memories that are blocked. So you might have something major that happens to you when you're mind controlled, and you literally can have that memory compartmentalized, and it might not come back until many years later, at which point the person says, look, all these things happened to me, and people say you're crazy, you're schizophrenic. So it's complex.
Interesting. And so you have the book, The End to the Upside Down Reset, which I guess is kind of a reference to the Great Reset. And so I guess you talk about like how the new left is failing, and it seems more so now than ever. Like there seems to be this total polar shift in politics where like, people on the left went to the right, and people from the, like I was saying earlier on the show, like Fox News is now this reputable news source. Like they don't really seem to lie to the same extent that a CNN or an NBC does, or MSNBC, sorry, where like that used to feel like that was the opposite, and now it's completely flipped.
Yeah, it's wild how this has happened. And one of the distinctions I make in that book is leftism versus liberalism.
Right.
Because a lot of people would say I'm liberal, which means pro-free speech, for example, or judge people based on the content of their character rather than something superficial like skin color. Whereas what's happening on the left is the opposite. It's like censor anything that we don't like. Skin color or other superficial things are what matter most in certain situations, and we should actually segregate on that basis. There are a number of things that are just flipped. So one of the reasons I wrote the book is that I think a lot of people calling themselves liberal might not even realize that other people who would call themselves liberal are actually left and are becoming authoritarian in that way.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people, a lot of people like Joe Rogan, tons of people I know are like, yeah, I used to be considered a liberal, and now people would be like, no, you're on the right now. And I'm like, I don't think so. Like, I don't identify that way. I don't really identify with anything, but obviously something, can you like pinpoint something that happened? It feels like it was the Trump thing that really like shook the first time around, because it seems like everything happened around 2015.
That seemed to be a shift, but I also looked at in this book the way the education system has been manipulated, especially through, let's say, professors at universities. It is so heavily skewed to the left, and there's been a shift in college campuses. I believe it was around 2013 that some political psychologists noticed the shift. So there's probably been something brewing for a long time where the indoctrination, or let's just say that the teaching of a certain philosophy has built up, and then Trump might have been the straw that broke the camel's back.
Sure. And do you kind of give any prescription of how to, get out of this?
I think the first step is acknowledging what's happening and seeing through the deception, because what happens with the Great Reset and a lot of, let's say, left-wing policies is that they're masked as something compassionate. Yeah. And leftist psychology loves compassion. So if it sounds like it's nice, then it must be nice. So I talk a lot about discernment in the book, is actually seeing through the wolf in sheep's clothing and looking at many different sources. Whereas what happens, especially on the left, but all over the place, people can get stuck into an echo chamber.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the compassion thing is the main thing. That's how everything, anti-racism, all the trans kids and like all the trans stuff. And you're like, yeah. And when it kind of first started happening, you're like, yeah, I don't want to be a dick. And if this person's, and then they just were encroaching further and further until some point where they're like, yeah, there's no difference between men and women. And it was almost like this psychological assault where you're like, okay, well, that just defies common sense at this point, and everything. And then you're looking around and people are like agreeing with them, and you're like, what's going on here? It's almost like a mass scale gaslighting.
Yes, it's like the compassion is only in one little segment, and then they'll ignore where they're not being compassionate. And especially for people who value compassion a lot, it would be very painful psychologically to acknowledge where they might be actually be authoritarian. So then there's a tendency to push it away even further. And they say, no, well, I'm just being compassionate to this group of people, and ignore the way in which they're actually excluding others.
Yeah. And do you think it was like the media was a big driver of that? Because it does seem in the last week since the election, watching the media, and now they're kind of like, it seems like they're kind of coming back around, at least not maybe MSNBC, who you could say is probably like leftist, but CNN, you watch them. I don't know if it's a business decision where they're like, hey, that's just not like a long-term profitable thing, but it does seem, and it depends where, but it does seem like at least here it's kind of coming back a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with you. I feel like there's a shift because the election was such a landslide. It's forcing the outlets to acknowledge something's up. And people on the left, I'm seeing more and more say, well, maybe we're just too strong with the wokeism, or, X, Y, and Z, which we didn't hear 4 years ago.
No.
So it's almost like to be a commercially successful media outlet, you have to acknowledge something happened if you lost like that.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the thing. They didn't even like lose. Like, it is crazy because everybody's like, oh, they got destroyed. And you're like, it was like, it's going to be 4 or 5 million votes. Like, I guess that is a lot of people, but
yeah,
it's not like Reagan where he won like 500 electoral college votes or whatever. Like, it's not anything insane like that. So you have, you're not like, I know you touch on the whole flat earth thing. I'm curious because on the other show I do, we've had tons of calls about this in the last, few weeks. So where do you stand on this?
So the approach I take in this new book, it's called An End to the Upside Down Cosmos, is that the current cosmology that is put forth, and that includes Big Bang, it includes heliocentrism, which means the sun's at the center, not the earth, and that includes even the nature of earth itself, that there are things that don't line up in the current cosmology. So I go there, where I wouldn't propose that there's an alternative, and I say this is the correct answer I can point you to, Danny. Mm-hmm. But I think there are a lot of holes in the current model. There are certain observations that do work better on a flat topographical plane relative to a sphere.
Yep.
But for a lot of reasons, we actually can't prove a flat Earth model because we are unable to have a number of observations. So number one is we would ideally want to be able to dig down really far. Like if Earth were a sphere, as it's claimed, the radius is about 4,000 miles. So ideally, you'd love to be able to dig all the way down and say, okay, we just dug to the bottom of the sphere. But the farthest we've ever been able to dig down is under 8 miles. That was the longest expedition ever. So there's a lot we don't know about what's below us. Mm-hmm. In terms of looking at Earth from what's above, we only have space agencies, and there are a lot of anomalies there.
Sure.
We don't have the ability to freely and privately look. We don't have the 24-hour video footage of the sphere of Earth doing a full rotation with continuous footage. We have these snippets of images that are often CGI and so forth. And then lastly, there are restrictions in terms of what we can even observe within Earth itself. And the most notable example is the Antarctic Treaty of 1959, which restricts free and private access to all of Antarctica below the 60th south latitude. We would need to know all of Antarctica, not just these little places that people can go to. That would be like saying we know all about North America by visiting part of San Francisco.
Right.
We need to be able to explore all this stuff. And until we can do that, we really can't know for sure.
So it seems like it's a question mark in there's questions certainly. Now, because obviously the flat Earth, like, do you think when did people start, like, when did the flat Earth thing kind of take off culturally?
Culturally, in the modern era, in 2014-ish, and people attribute that to a number of different things. There's a documentary called The Principle, which anyone can watch online. That's actually not a flat Earth documentary. It's a documentary that challenges heliocentrism. It goes through the idea that actually Earth might be at the center, but they don't go as far to say that Earth is not a sphere, because Earth could be a sphere at the center. It doesn't have to be flat. There was also a documentary by Crow 777 Radio's host. He was looking through his telescope at the moon and other bodies in the sky. And there are these what appear to be waves. He calls them lunar waves, meaning that the moon and other bodies up there might be in a fluid medium, which is what the Bible talks about, like the waters above, waters below. So there are these events that potentially brought things forward. Eric Dubé had a lot of content that came out around then. And also, I mean, Danny, when I was surprised when I looked at this, because so many people asked me about it, and I had no opinion until very recently. But I didn't realize how much of a history this whole thing has. I mean, first of all, the ancient cosmologies in cultures all over the world were a flat stationary plane at the center. And then in the 1800s, there were many people that were talking about flat Earth, challenging the globe model. And through the 1900s, there was a lot more questioning. But like you say, there was a big spike in 2014. But I don't think it would be accurate to say that was when it officially started. There's a big history behind it.
But that's when it's kind of become, I guess you could say, culturally significant here. Yeah. Like, is flat Earth a thing in other countries like it is in America? Is this like an American-centric thing?
Yeah, no, it's not American-centric. There's a statistic, I believe it was Brazil, that I quoted in the book, where some large percentage of the population believes Earth is flat. So I think it is a worldwide thing. And one of the reasons I think it's occurring is that people seem to be able to observe objects that should be blocked by the curvature of Earth if you do that. So according to the globe model, there's a radius value of roughly 4,000 miles. So you should be able to calculate, based on how high you are above the ground, what you can see versus what you can't, because certain things should literally be blocked by the curve of Earth. It would be like trying to see something that's around a bend. You wouldn't be able to see it because the bend is blocking it.
Right.
And what's happening is people are doing the math and they say, okay, this thing should be blocked. And then they look and they see that it's visible. And so I think that is creating a lot of momentum for this, whereas you'd expect that maybe the agencies would come out with example after example of where something should be blocked and it is blocked.
Yeah. Well, I had on the other show I do, because people keep calling in about this, like the last 3 episodes, we've had callers, and we had a guy, Eddie Grimm, I believe, and he worked on a naval sub for 13 years. And he's like, there were tons of flat earthers on the sub, because when they put up their periscope, he's like, there would be boats in the distance. And he essentially said, from what they were told, the boat should be slowly appearing, right, based on the distance. He's like, but you could just see the whole thing the whole way. And so all these people who are like sub operators were essentially like, that does not make sense. That you can see this whole thing, like at that distance, like you're saying, it should be far away. Now, do you think, because, you say 2014, I was saying a lot of this shit started happening around Trump, 2015, like, is there some element where there's just, like the media, everybody started just distrusting everything? And then people are like, why not this? Because it seems to me like there is some sort of link here, time-wise.
I think it's a good point. And it really comes down for me to what's the true history of our civilization and how much has been suppressed and when did the suppression happen? Because what I found in researching all these various topics is that basically I was taught a narrative. Like, I went to Princeton for undergrad, and now most of the things that I was taught there, I don't think are accurate. That the mainstream narrative that we grow up with is often skewed in so many different ways. And that just seems to be coming out more and more. And maybe the internet is helping that to a degree.
Yeah.
And people are just asking more questions and they're not getting good answers.
Yeah. All right. The phone lines are open, everybody. 1-888-949-2969. We got some callers on the line here. Let's take a call, and then we'll get back to some more of this, because this is pretty interesting stuff. We got, I don't know if Rube Star's a flat earther. He might be a globalist. Rube, you're on the line.
Hey, Danny. Great guest.
Thank you.
And speaking of flat Earth, I wanted to give you an example of the map that he's talking about. So for a lake that's 10 miles long, when it freezes, would it freeze with the curve or would it freeze level, in your opinion?
That's a good question. I've never thought about that. If this show ends up turning me into a flat earther, that'll be hilarious. But I don't know. I would think flat, but I don't know.
Well, there's a curvature. If it's a sphere, there's got to be a curve, right, Mark?
That's what it would assume, that we live on a ball. So there would have to be some curvature, even if it's minor, at a small distance.
Right, like the Great Lakes in Canada, for example, like the Great Lakes, they're big enough where the curvature would factor in.
Well, cut to the chase. They've already done laser experiments and proven that it's level. But the way the math works is it's an 8-inch drop every mile squared if you have zero height. Okay, just to simplify, we'll say zero height. So for 10 miles, you do an 8-inch drop every mile squared. So you got to square the miles first. So 10 times 10 is 100. And then you times it by 8 inches. So it should be 800 inches the curvature. So convert that into feet by dividing it by 12, and you get something like 65 feet of curvature. Okay.
Does that sound right, Mark?
And you
Yeah.
And you can go to the Google curve calculator. Just you look this up yourself and do it yourself. Okay. So where I live, there's Mosquito Lake. It's 9.5 miles long. Okay, close enough to 10 miles. This should be a 50 to 60 foot drop. There is not. You could see clear to the other side without binoculars, no problem. That's why that's like the biggest argument for a flat stationary plane. It's like, where's the curve? And then you could go further, like people do like super long distance photo. And also, speaking of the Navy, the railgun is supposed to be able to shoot, it's like this magnetic weapon we have. It's supposed to be able to shoot 100 miles long. You could never do that on a curved plane. And Euclidean math, all math is based on a flat stationary plane. So I don't know if that'll sink in. But that's one of the things that always frustrates me when you talk about flat Earth is you don't put that formula in there. You got to put that formula in there. If the people that are following the globe knew the formula, they wouldn't be so quick to call the flat earthers crazy.
Right. See, my issue is I understand that point. I guess I always have more issues personally with the things like, and I've brought this up before, but like I've been to Australia, for example. How does that work when I flew? Like I went from Toronto to Vancouver to Hawaii, and I just went west the whole time. What is, because I've heard that the explanation is that just the pilots are all in on it. And
the quickest example is just take a look at the UN map and just put 2 points together, and whatever the straight line is, that's probably what your flight path was. And I could send you videos. There's channels where a guy just all he does is talk about flight paths. And when they take emergency landings, like you would think they'd be landing over here, but oh no, they landed in Alaska. You're like, what, Alaska? Why the hell would they land? If they're going from Thailand to Central America, why aren't they flying over the ocean? They're not. You got to look at the map that the UN uses, and also ask yourself, why does the UN use that map?
Mark?
But I wanted to hit on a couple other topics if I could.
Yeah, go ahead.
Mark, when's your birthday? I'm an amateur astrologist. That's why I ask.
111.
111. What year?
86.
86. All right. Well, that's the week of dominance. There's one area of their life that they're the master of. It's a Capricorn 3. But another thing I wanted to bring up, well, also as a side note, there is a book called The Secret Language of Destiny. You could actually trace the behavioral people's past life behavioral traits using math, if you're into stuff like that. But the other thing I wanted to bring up real quick is, have you heard any stories about Chantix?
I'm not familiar with that.
What is that?
So it's a drug you give people to quit smoking.
Oh, yeah, the smoking drug. Yeah, I've heard of it. That was the Ray Liotta was the spokesperson for it before he died.
Okay, well, there's just a few wonky little side effects. Like, for example, you go to sleep, you live like 2-3 lifetimes, you wake up and you're like, what the hell am I doing here? Where are my grandkids? And as a side result, yeah, you could look up stories on YouTube. People go to sleep and they have a reoccurring dream, and it's a terrible dream. No matter how many times they wake up, they always go back to sleep to that same dream. On this drug Chantix. Just wondering if you're familiar with that.
That's fascinating. I'm not surprised, and I think there are probably lots of compounds that can alter the mind in ways that most people, everyday people, just wouldn't expect. And when you're dealing with governments that have lots and lots of funding and decades of experience, it should be no surprise.
And then what's your take on the Mandela effect? And I'll get off.
Yes, I'm very intrigued by that. So the Mandela effect is the idea that Something that we used to consider true is no longer true. So, for example, in Star Wars, most of us believe that the line is, Luke, I am your father.
Yeah.
But actually it's, no, I am your father.
Mm-hmm.
The question is, did reality shift, or are we all just collectively misremembering? And with my just like metaphysical view, my work on consciousness. So for me, consciousness is not something that comes from the body or the brain, but it's actually somehow foundational in the nature of reality itself, which to me makes it very possible that reality is malleable, that it could actually shift. And the Mandela effect, if reality is shifting without our conscious knowledge of it, it's possible that even the cosmos is shifting. So what might have been true at one point in the past maybe has shifted about the nature of Earth and our place in the universe.
Yeah, we had a guest on maybe a month or two ago now, and he was spoke about the Mandela effect with the Bible and how basically like he was like a pastor, and he's basically like all these people who, you know, should know all these things, and it's the same thing. Like they all misremember, I guess, but collectively, they're all collectively misremembering the same thing.
Yeah, it's wild. I think we should be open to it. That's my opinion. I do mention it in my new book.
Yeah. All right, Rube. Thanks,
just
man.
while you're
Hey,
Danny, while you were talking, I looked up his karmic path. He's on the karmic path of satisfaction.
Okay.
Which
is that good?
It is exactly. Well, he's got to keep doing something until he's satisfied. So, like he was saying before, he was doing the tech world, and it just wasn't doing it for him. So he had to get to this.
All right. Thanks.
So he's always seeking satisfaction. All right. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Ruben.
Rube Star, everybody. Yeah, it's all interesting stuff. All right, let's take another call here. One moment, please. I believe we got Slav waiting for us. Hello.
Y'all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hey, y'all hear me? Hey. Yeah, Danny, I'm sticking to what my belief of the shape of the Earth is.
Dreidel Earth.
The Earth is dreidel. Yes, Dreidel Earth.
Is that, Mark, any possibility there?
I mean, they're everywhere. Tell me one country. I bet they have dreidels in Antarctica. I'll bet money, bro.
I'd like if they did like some survey, and they just like did like one of those ice core samples, and they're just like 100 feet below, they just find a dreidel.
No, I'm just saying, like, in one of those research stations or whatever the fuck, on every single continent there's dreidels.
Probably, but there's Jews on every continent.
And in every country, yeah. Dude, there's dreidels in North Korea, I bet you, and not even in.
Yeah, they probably make them there. Probably slave labor is making them. That's what I would.
But yeah, anyways. No, that's just. I mean, honestly, I don't give two shits about how the Earth is shaped. I mean, what if the truth ever comes out? Whatever the fuck, I really don't care. Like,
I mean, hold on, really yeah, 1 second. But Mark, is the point of the flat Earth thing essentially that this is just like the greatest lie? Like we're just uncovering another just, you know, massive lie that we've been told? Like, is that, like, obviously it benefits to know. Now, does it change engineering and things like this? For example,
well, it's
like,
interesting that, I mean, I quote in my book a lot of engineering documents.
I was going to bring up ICBM. I was going to bring up
ballistic. Yeah, well, I was actually going to reference you because you said it for someone else. We go like do ICBMs, like, are they programmed on a, you know, obviously if the Earth is round versus the Earth is flat and you shoot a missile, where it lands probably factors into the curvature, no?
Yeah, there are a lot of engineering documents that assume a flat stationary plane. And I quote like example after example of that, which is pretty interesting because you'd expect a lot of, you know, you'd expect precision.
Right.
And if they're saying, oh, we're just doing it because it's close enough, that's pretty strange.
Yeah. Well, close enough, you would think for something like serious doesn't work out, right? Like that's close enough could be the difference between a huge disaster or not. So that's interesting. And these are like, you know, reputable engineers.
Yeah, like NASA documents, Army documents. I list off maybe like 5 to 10 of them. Interesting. Yeah. But back to your question, Danny, about why, I think that's what you're asking. Why would you? Yeah. I mean, it's hard to know if we're not actually the ones engineering this, but number one, if we don't have an accurate representation of where we live, it could be that there are resources that are hidden from us. So there could be a financial reason to hide it. but I think it's more metaphysical, deeper. Like if we are basically trained to disbelieve our basic senses and live in falsehood, that might do something on a subconscious level to us all the time. Like, for example, if we didn't hear from physicists, we would not believe that we are simultaneously rotating on a tilted axis faster than the speed of sound, 1,000 miles an hour at the equator, which is what we're told, free falling around the sun at over 66,000 miles an hour, while rotating around the Milky Way galaxy at over 500,000 miles an hour, while moving outward in an expanding universe at over 1,000,000 miles an hour, while the Earth is wobbling in 4 different ways. If we hadn't been told that by scientists, we would believe our senses, which is that it feels like we're in a stationary place, and we never ever witness down and away curvature. We see circularity, which has to do with the way that our eyes see, but that's different than spherical curvature, which means down and away. Our senses tell us stationary and non-spherical, as an example. And we're told, no, there's a lot of complex science from authority figures. We should just trust them. Right. So it's a part of maybe a conditioning. And these are just hypotheses.
And now, because this is another thing that I always think about. So someone like Elon Musk, you know, he's obviously sending rockets into space, assuming space exists. He's, you know, all the rockets, all the satellites.
They made space gay, bro.
Space
is kind of gay now for the kids.
But would Elon Musk know that the Earth is flat?
Good question. This is hard for me too. It's like, who's in on it? Who knows what? Because I believe that people send rockets up, but we don't see where they go exactly. And a lot of the footage, it's not continuous. So you'll see the rocket going up, and then all of a sudden the footage cuts, and it's from the rocket's perspective above. Right. So you don't see fully where it goes. And then something comes down, but you don't know where it was in between. So that leaves a lot of possibility even for NASA employees who might be getting data, but they don't actually know where the data is coming from. So this could be very compartmentalized in theory.
So then I assume you don't believe that. Yeah. I mean, you can't believe that they went to the moon, obviously, because
yeah, I mean, I have a whole chapter on this. I think the notion of space itself is problematic. So it has to do with the physics of pressure. And I quote in my book this guy, Stephen A. Young. He's a theoretical physics PhD who wrote a book this year called A Fool's Wisdom. And he comes out and says, I think with 100% certainty, it's not a spinning globe, but I don't know what it is with certainty. He says about this pressure issue that basically Earth has an atmosphere, but we don't have a closed system. There's nothing enclosing us, according to mainstream cosmology. It's just sitting next to this vacuum of space. And a vacuum is basically a very low pressure system, and it's almost infinitely big in this expanding universe. Typically what happens when you have a high pressure system next to a low pressure system is the gas flows out. It diffuses to equalize. So if you open a can of soda, you hear a big pop because the gas inside the soda can has higher pressure than what's outside the can. Yeah. And when you open it up, it equalizes. We don't have that happening with our atmosphere. Our atmosphere is not flowing out into space, even though there's this massive differential. And what people say is, well, gravity is somehow holding it in so that we can coexist peacefully. And there are physicists like Stephen A. Young who do not believe that. And there are a lot of problems with gravity, which we could talk about too.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, dude, I'm going to be honest with you, dude.
Yeah.
When you started off with all that, I just tuned out. Like, I'm a geographer and a geologist. And Danny, my apologies. I just wanted to make a joke and ask my question about this the expansion of the surveillance state. But
sure.
I'm a practical dude. I don't care, like Bible talks about Furman and stuff. It's like, bro, I go outside.
This isn't even Bible talk, though.
I see the animals. I go outside, huh?
I said I don't think we're talking about the Bible. Outside. No, I'm saying we're not talking about the. Did you say Bible talk?
I don't give two shits about the shape of the Earth and what the reality is.
I mean, but you have to admit that if there's people who know that the Earth is not a sphere, and they're keeping it from people, like that would be a massive scandal for that to somehow come out. Like that would. Those people in charge of those secrets, but we call them demonic and faggots and retards. Dude. Sure. But in America, corner of the internet in America, maybe, but that would be globally.
In America,
I guess you can't even say globally anymore. I don't even know what you would say. All right, I gotta let you go. We got a million callers.
My question for the
go ahead quickly.
Okay, so the one immediate effect that the nation and the world has seen from the election is people are completely giving up on legacy media. It is a good thing, except there's a void to be filled, and there will be a void to fill with the expanding security state. what is this like? We're gonna have greater surveillance happen regardless, but how is it going to look, and what is like the best options we have with like sovereign autonomy? Because if we could be sovereign citizens under Trump, that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, he's not going to let that happen, I don't think. I don't think he's that much of a iconoclast kind of, but Mark?
Yeah, my view on this is true liberty is going to come as a grassroots thing because the system is going to do what it does. No matter who's in the system trying to change it, there's so much momentum for it to be a certain way. So I think it's going to be individuals and groups of individuals coming up with their own solutions to basically disconnect.
Interesting. All right, Slav. Thanks, man. All right, that was Slav. I actually have this is more of a personal question because we're similar age. I'm also Jewish. What do your parents think about this?
Well, I've been pretty lucky with my family because I
feel like if I showed up and I was like Passover or something going on this, my parents would be like, "What the fuck?"
I think over time, family and friends have gotten used to this because I've been talking about so many crazy things, and they've had time to allow the ideas to sink. And when you first hear the stuff, it sounds crazy, but over time, and you hear the repetition, and I show the evidence over and over, they become more and more accepting. But a lot of the stuff, it's a matter of how much the individual wants to dive in. Like I have one buddy of mine, really smart doctor, who first heard about my book on like the evidence for psychic abilities and that we don't die. And he goes, "Mark, I think you're probably right, but I don't want to go any farther into this because my life is good the way it is. Right. And I don't want to rock the boat." And I think there's a lot of that.
And have you like converted any like friends, family members? Got them kind of.
There's a few. Every now and then someone says, "Oh, I actually read what you're writing about," or "I watched one of your interviews. Really interesting. It's making me think about things." But a lot of the people from where I grew up, just like academically and professionally, are just not that interested. They're focused on what, their path, wild path.
Yeah, whatever they're doing. And yeah, I mean, this is not without its negatives because you're probably like, once you, I guess, go too deep, you're like, there's just no coming back.
Yeah, I mean, it's nerve-wracking to say I'm going to write a book about these topics because I know how hard it was hard for me to overcome it.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like people think like these topics, you always expect like some shaman dude who's drinking ayahuasca, and you just seem like a pretty normal guy.
I appreciate it. I mean, I'm looking at this stuff trying to disprove it. I'm saying, okay, here's another psyop that everyone's calling a psyop, whether it's flat Earth or in my medicine book, this idea that viruses don't exist. I wrote about that too. Yeah. I was like, let me disprove the psyop. And the deeper I went, I said, there's some interesting stuff here scientifically that we have to look at.
Right. Okay, let's take another call here. We got a lot of people online. Please wait on the line. We will get to you. I promise. Conspiracy Extremist, back on. What's up, man?
What's up, man? Hey, thanks for letting me back on again. I'll try to be real quick. I know you guys.
Yeah, no problem. You're kind of muffled. Man. Can't hear you that well.
Oh, all right.
Might be on the AirPods.
How about now? Is this better?
Yeah, sounds great.
Cool. Hey, I got to push back against your guest a little bit.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to ask him: is he saying like he doesn't believe that the Earth is spinning exactly 1,000 miles per hour? And we're not going through the galaxy 66,600 miles per hour.
It sounds like it.
Say?
Yeah, I'm questioning that narrative. Yes.
And are you telling me that you don't think that like COVID was a real thing and that just like the flu just disappeared out of nowhere?
I think people get sick with symptoms. What I question is the cause. Is it an obligate intracellular parasite that no one has ever isolated before that caused those symptoms, or is it something else?
All right. Well, obviously, you are a science denier, but I am just joking. But I do have a serious question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I'm also a flat earther. So I would like to ask you, well, it's not a personal question, but so I'm a very anti-Semitic person, but then I meet people like Danny Paulchuk and Dave Smith and Flat Earth Dave, and I'm like, all right, well,
it sounds like you got to rethink a lot of things in your life.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I do want to ask you, and I wanted to ask like Flat Earth Dave this at some point, because I think a lot of the conspiracy people are very like JQ filled. Do you find that like challenging managing in like the truth, like the truth world or whatever?
Because I will say, like, he has a good point, because I don't know where it's on like the spectrum, but I believe Flat Earth is somewhere before the Jews. Right? Like on the list. Like it's like people, you just start checking off boxes. You're like, this is bullshit. This is a good flat earth. And then you're like, I think the Jews are almost at the end. I don't know if you have a theory on maybe where it lies on the spectrum, but
I don't know. That was first on my list.
that was your starting point. Sure.
Yeah. It's one I have not explored myself. So I
convenient. No, I'm kidding. Yeah.
All right. Well, fair enough. That's cool because I know Flat Earth Dave deals with that pretty well. He's like, oh well, apparently I'm Jewish. But in all honesty, like I don't really care. But I do. I find it interesting, like you exploring the flat Earth, or at least the. So do you see it as like a flat Earth, or do you go like the true Earth way, or like the biblical Earth way?
Yeah, I mean, where I am is I don't think it's a spinning globe as we've been taught. I think the mainstream cosmology is off. I really don't know exactly what it is, but I do think a lot of the observations fit a topographical plane.
Yeah. But hey, I'm right there with you. So
all
I
right.
just want to chime in. Thanks, Danny, for taking my call. Have a good one.
Later, man. Yeah, I mean, you must obviously in the world that you're in. There's just like with the whole conspiracy thing, is it just always somehow gets back to the Jews.
Yeah, I haven't encountered it too much. Maybe my work hasn't gotten out there as much as others has.
Well, just you wait, because it seems like your 10th book is going to be probably something related to that. It's just the natural progression. All right.
Yeah, there's only so much I can explore. It's, like you said, it's been 7 years or so, and it's like, hey, people ask me about things, and I say I don't have an opinion because I haven't studied it yet.
Right. All right, let's take another call here. We got. Please make sure to unmute yourself when requested. Otherwise, we're gonna have to get to somebody else. All right. Not unmuting themselves. Let's try someone else here. Come on, people. By the way, thank you for all the new members. Appreciate you. And please unmute yourself when requested. Otherwise, this happens. I don't know. All right. Let's try somebody else. I guess I'll read a super chat while we're waiting. Oh, here we go. All right. Hello. You're on Low Value Mail. Who am I speaking with?
Hey, Danny, it's Will.
Will, what's up, man?
Oh, not a whole lot. I just came across the stream in my feed, and I never catch the stream live, so I figured I'd call in.
Good man.
So I'm not even really sure what we're talking about besides flat Earth.
We're talking about flat Earth. We're talking about a lot of, you cover a lot of conspiracies, health conspiracies. I guess you call them conspiracies. I don't think you really refer to them necessarily as conspiracies, though. What do you refer to them as?
I just trying to get to the truth.
Trying to get to the truth.
In medicine, why do we get sick? What actually causes illness? Where do we live? That's really what it is. It's not, to me, flat is part of the conversation, but it's where are we?
Right.
That's how I look at these things.
And what is, sorry to cut you off there, Will, but so like what I referenced earlier with going to Australia, like what is the explanation for how, like when I flew to Australia for
how travel works?
Yeah.
So I've heard this on both sides, and I'm not a pilot, so it's hard for me. And I have talked to pilots. One who talked to me before he even knew I was looking at this topic, and he goes, yeah, I was a pilot for 25 years. I don't think we want a spinning globe. I used to teach pilots, and I never taught them to adjust for curvature or spin.
Right.
So the other side is what the caller said before, which is that there are examples of emergency landings that apparently don't fit the map. They fit better on a flat map. But the problem I have is if we don't have an ability to fully explore Earth, how can we have a comprehensive map to know exactly what the layout is? So it could be that in a lot of these maps, the flat maps, quote unquote, there are errors that it's almost fully right, but not exactly right, because we actually haven't had an opportunity to explore fully.
Sure. Okay. Will, anything you want to add?
I mean, I'm kind of like a low value male, so I'm not really going to add. What I would,
yeah,
like, I spend like 8 hours a day watching YouTube, so
Okay.
it's like wasting my life.
Well, you're learning.
There's a couple of channels that I would recommend to viewers and yourself.
Yeah, go ahead.
Like old world exploration.
Okay.
I believe he's a Canadian, but he brings up some really valid points with a lot of these buildings, old buildings, that the history of them is way off. What they give us doesn't sound accurate at all with horse and buggy and manpower.
Mm-hmm.
Old world exploration. And there's also, oh man, like this one guy, Frenchot, Frenchot, Frenchot.
Oh, okay.
Blue.
Yeah.
He doing some crazy work right now on like numbers and how all these numbers, birth dates, dates, like election date,
like gematria kind of thing.
Like, I think that's what it is called. Yeah, I've never really looked into it, but he is dropping bombs, dude. All this stuff is leading back to Obama and like, I don't know, Obama's birthday pops up in this gematria stuff like every single day almost. And he's not trying to find it. He's just typing in the numbers, and that's what it turns out to be.
It just keeps coming up. Interesting. Fascinating stuff.
French.
Yeah, French.
He's a pretty cool.
Cool. Yeah, I'll check it out.
Cool, man. Old world exploration. Also, that channel is pretty crazy.
Yeah,
I think you'll like it.
Cool, man. I'll definitely check them both out. Appreciate it, man.
Alrighty.
Take care. I have a question from the chat. Actually, I don't know if these are both questions, but this is from Chris. It says, look into Vance Peter Thiel relationship, Palantir, what they developed in Israel and tested in Gaza to export as globalist, digital, technocratic, mass surveillance apparatus, mark of the beast. And this question is from Logan. Says, can you please ask the guest how many forms of water there are in your opinion?
Good question. It's another thing I want to look into more.
I've never heard that there was multiple forms of water. This is literally the first time hearing this from Logan.
Yeah, so I'll give two examples. One is the work of Gerald Pollack. I recommend looking into. He calls it the fourth phase of water. That it's like called structured water. So it's not gas, liquid, ice. It's another phase. And I've also heard people reference, I want to look into this myself, that at the bottom of the ocean there are like different types of fluids, basically, where they're like lakes within the lake. Mm-hmm. I know many people that I respect are saying water is something we need to better understand. It has crazy properties. So I think there's something there, but I don't know enough about it.
And are you interested in the exploration of the ocean? Because I know obviously like they've barely explored,
Yeah, I think so for sure. To understand what this place is, I mean, there's some small percentage of the ocean floor that's been explored fully. Like if we want to understand our history, and the guy earlier was talking about the old world, it's all related to this. Like, what is the place that we're in, and how did we get to this point? We've got to explore everything, including the ocean floor. And
so, with your kind of framework, do you think that on like there's an ice wall kind of thing? Because the Flat Earth Dave said that basically, where like there's like an ice wall, and then on the outside of that there's like valuable resources. And then if so, why hasn't anybody ever tried to just fly one direction? Because there must be like, I assume I don't know what the proper, flat map looks like, but I assume, California must be close to the edge. Is that correct?
Well, so again, we're running into the realm of speculation because of the Antarctic Treaty, but given all that, because I've looked into this a lot too, the idea is that Antarctica, on the sphere model, it's an island in the south surrounded by water. But on the flat framework, Antarctica is a circular wall surrounding the lake of Earth. So basically take everything that you see on the sphere, put it in a circular lake, and then surround it with an ice wall. The ice wall is Antarctica. And then beyond the ice wall, there are other lands where there might be resources and advanced civilizations. And there have been some people who claim they've been past the ice wall and have written about it. And I quote some of those in the book. But these are anecdotes that we can't fully validate. Now, the question of travel, Danny, is a really interesting one, because some people speculate that airships like the Hindenburg, that would allow freer travel, but perhaps that was PSYOP to get rid of that kind of travel, because with airplanes, you need an airport and it's much more complicated to get around as just a private citizen. Whereas the airship, for example, might have made it easier to travel beyond the ice wall, but we got rid of that because of the Hindenburg. So,
why hasn't there been some rich, eccentric dude who's, gasses up a plane and just flies until... just like there must be someone who's like, fancies themselves as some rich explorer type who's just like, I'm going to go for it? Or is there like, you get at some point 2 fighter jets come beside you and they're just like, turn around?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, the Antarctic Treaty was signed by countries all over the world, including the US and the Soviet Union, and they were supposed to be in a Cold War as arch nemesis. So there's some kind of coordination here to really restrict what's happening below the 60th south latitude. And I would imagine that someone who tries without permission is going to be monitored.
Right. Yeah, we had someone call in. They were saying, I guess some people did try and take a boat expedition down there, and people died and all this stuff. And I can't remember who, but it was like someone tells some story. Like they tried to go down there, and then there was like a windstorm or something, and then they were like, some people tried to go out, and but they were like shot to death down there, and it seemed like there was nobody there. But then he like came back to his boat, and everybody was dead. All right, let's take another call here. Give me a moment, please. And if you are on hold, please make sure to unmute yourself when I request it. Hello, you're on Low Value Mail. Who am I speaking with?
Hey, Danny, this is Kevin. Can you hear me?
Kevin, yep. Loud and clear. What's up?
Hey, how's it going? I met you a couple times at Skankfest and at the stand.
Hell yeah.
But I just wanted to weigh in on this discussion because I used to be a sailor for 9 years and commercial sailor, not in the Navy. So at least for the Flat Earth guys, that should allay their fears that I'm like a government guy.
Uh-huh.
So commercial sailor, went to SUNY Maritime College with a lot of other regular people from New York and elsewhere. Anyone can go there, become a sailor, and work on ships and become, if you're a deck officer, then you'll be navigating the ship for 8 hours a day, every day for about 4 months.
Okay.
So the way it works is you'll have 3 different watches. And each watch will be steering a course. If you're going across the ocean, you're steering pretty much the same course the whole time. We also make a voyage plan. And when we make the voyage plan, we determine what the courses are that we're going to steer so that we do the distance in the shortest distance possible to save fuel and time.
Right.
To make those voyage plans, we use a spherical model of the Earth in the calculations because we use a great circle is the fastest distance to travel on a sphere, which is a great circle is if you imagine dividing the Earth in half.
Okay.
That line that would make along the surface of the Earth is a great circle. So the equator is the only latitude that's a great circle, right? But then you have like the prime meridian's a great circle, but also every longitude line is a great circle if you think about it. But latitudes, they keep getting smaller as it goes towards the top.
Right.
Because you're making slices halfway,
it's getting narrower, yeah.
So one question I would ask is how when we leave the East Coast of the United States on a worldwide voyage, going to multiple ports, right? And we're sailing in eastward directions at all times, verified by people staying watch the entire time. It's never at a point where no one is navigating the vessel. How then would we end up on the west coast of the United States eventually, if it was not a spherical Earth?
So if I'm understanding your question correctly, are you also asking how you do circumnavigation, where if you went due west, you would end up in the same place?
No, I'm telling you that we went east.
Yeah.
And we never went in a westward direction.
Yeah.
And we ended up in a westward position from where we started.
Essentially, you're saying you went around.
You went around.
Left New York, ended up in Canada.
Like
so
Western,
how would you
Western
do
Canada.
that? If we're verifying we're sailing the same direction the whole time.
Yes. So if
basically.
I'm understanding correctly,
we'll never westward.
Yeah. So the way it would work on the flat framework is that the North Pole, magnetic north, is at the center. So if you're going due east or west, you end up taking a circular path and you end up where you started. And also I want to add that a man named Hervé Riboni, who I mentioned in my book, he was a professional sailor and a participant in the 1993-1994 Whitbread Round the World race. And he said he's sailed along the 50th latitude south, which goes by the Cape of Good Hope, etc. And he does not believe Earth is a spinning globe. He thinks it's flat.
And caller, did you have people?
Well,
who
everyone I've ever sailed with and gone to school with believes it's a spherical
Earth. It's a sphere.
I also just wanted to address, by the way, you can see things do appear slowly over the horizon if you have binoculars, especially high-powered binoculars. Like on one ship I was on, I was a cadet. This was like a trainee, and it was a military sea lift command. So I was a trainee. It's a private company basically, but it's hired by the government to refuel their Navy ships at sea. They have these the ship had these like large, we call them the big eyes. They were these large binoculars that are bolted into the bridge wings. And so they had high magnification, and you can see just the top of the ship, and it's cut off by the horizon. And you could tell because it's completely shaped differently than the rest of the ship. And a lot of the times they're different colors. And then like a lot of flat earth guys will say, oh, but they'll show you a picture where it's like, no, but look, see this picture, and then that one, zoom in. But that's just because it's a hazy day. If it's a clear day, then on a hazy day, you might only be able to see 10 miles. But on a clear day, you can clearly see, and you're tracking the targets on the radar, because the radar can go see things further than the horizon because it's bouncing off of the, I don't know if it's the ionosphere or whatever, but it can see around the curvature of the Earth, unlike our eyes can. So it's picking up targets, and you're waiting for the targets to appear visually. And then you can see them come over the horizon, and you're only seeing the top first, and then you see the rest of it. So it's something that I've seen with my own eyes. So that's why I have such trouble with these discussions, because I'm like, I know it's real. And a great circle, first of all, we also use celestial navigation, which is using a sextant to determine the angle between the horizon and the bodies in the sky, such as the sun, the moon, different stars. I could identify, if I was with you on a night, I could identify multiple stars by the constellations, which we would use in celestial navigation. And then using that, you would plot that on the chart, and you'd be able to accurately pinpoint where you are within 1 nautical mile, which is, very accurate considering the
vastness of the ocean,
size of the whole world.
Yeah. And I mean, again, it's weird. It's interesting.
Uses spherical trigonometry.
Right. And it's interesting you say that, just only because I referenced the guy who called the other show, who worked on the sub, and he was like, with their periscopes, he's like, they could just see forever. But anyways, Mark, do you have any comment?
Yeah. So there's a common question of like, why do, like, even Aristotle talked about ships disappearing over the horizon, and the hull drops before the mast. And a lot of this stuff, the example I'm going to mention, but other observations too, have to do with the way that our eyes see things. And there's an angular resolution issue. Basically, the angle of vision determines what disappears first. So it's not because of the shape per se, it's because of the way that we see.
Well, I see everything though the same way.
But at a distance, you end up with these angular resolution
why doesn't
issues.
Why doesn't everything disappear that way to me then? I don't, like, when I'm looking at, like, what if I'm standing like on a mountain or whatever, I don't know, like, I don't understand the premise there. I'm like, you're seeing it drop over the horizon, and it's a very different shapes. And if you're 100 feet up off the surface of the ocean on the bridge of a ship, and other ships are likewise that tall. Car carriers are shaped very differently than container ships. So you're seeing the shape pretty clearly, especially, like I said, if it's a clear day with high-powered binoculars. It at least to me looks very much like you're just seeing the top of it. Not to mention, there's also a calculation where you use the height of eye. I think it was, I don't remember if this is exactly right, because I haven't been sailing now for like 5 years, but I think it was 1.17 times the square root of the height of eye will tell you what the distance is, what your distance is from the object. And so you would do that for both your height of eye and the height of eye of the item that you're using, which could be a shore-based item too, or whatever. but so you could verify that way too, using that. And this is all in the book, by the way. Bowditch, The American Practical Navigator, I think is what it's called. That was like our textbook at school. It was originally written in the 1800s by an American navigator, who
and they still use it now.
Came up with a lot of these. Well, it's been updated, obviously, as the years have gone on, and navigation's been updated. But that was the first one, and still named Nathaniel Bowditch, I think is the guy's name.
Okay, Mark, you want to say anything to that?
I don't know. It's a lot of questions.
Yeah.
No, thanks for the comments. I appreciate it. I do think there is something about the angular resolution and where it might look like it's curved, but it's just the way that we see things at a distance. But I also want to touch on navigation, because navigation relates to a topic known as magnetic declination, which is basically the adjustment that needs to be made between Earth's magnetic poles on the sphere versus the geographic poles. So the North Pole geographically.
Okay. Well, wait. Magnetic. Why magnetic? We use gyro compasses, which don't use magnets anymore. Magnets are. We have magnetic compasses as backups, but a gyro compass is a spinning. It spins very fast and uses the movement of the Earth, which is spinning. Uses that and gravity, which also exists, to adjust itself to true north, and so it's always pointing at true north, and through that we're able to navigate that way, and it gets us where we're going. How do flat earthers navigate? What do they use? If it's with this alternate science, what do they use? I mean, this successfully works, and it's based on gravity and the spherical Earth, spinning Earth, and latitude and longitude. And it all makes sense too. It makes sense to me. I don't understand what the alternative is. What's the flat Earth?
Right.
Yeah, Mark, you want to answer?
Yeah, so there are a lot of assumptions that are embedded in what you said, which would take a long time to unpack. But there's a logical fallacy. It's called affirming the consequent. Basically, it's if it rains, the grass outside will be wet. But if you see that the grass outside is wet, it doesn't mean that it rained. There are many other ways to explain observations. So what you described is one model to fit all the observations, and it works. But because something works doesn't necessarily mean that the rain caused the grass to be wet. And I want to just touch on gravity, because I think this is a big one. Newton's gravity does not work as a comprehensive model. For example, it is unable to predict Mercury's motion around the sun. So it fails as a comprehensive model. And Newton's gravity basically says mass attracts mass. So the apple falls to the ground because the mass of Earth is greater than the mass of the apple. So that needed to be revised. And that led to Einstein's general relativity theory. However, Einstein's general relativity theory has led to a big hole. And this, in 1933, there was an astronomer named Fritz Zwicky who observed a cluster of galaxies called the Coma cluster. And using Einstein's revised gravity, there was under 1% of the mass that needed to be there in order for Einstein's gravity to work. And instead of saying, well, maybe Einstein's...
Hello?
Hey. No, I hear you. We lost Mark froze here for a second.
Did you lose me?
Yeah, we lost you there. Yeah, you're back. Yeah.
Where'd you lose me, Danny?
Einstein's gravity. There's something about 1%.
Yeah, so Einstein's gravity, in order for Einstein's gravity to work, there was missing mass. Under 1% of the mass that needed to be there in this observation wasn't there. So the scientists said, we discovered dark matter. There must be some matter there that we haven't identified. But unfortunately, recently, dark matter has now been falsified by credible physicists. So astrophysicist Pavel Krupa, who's at the University of Bonn in Germany, I'm going to read you his exact quote. He said, the current cosmological model only works by postulating the existence of dark matter, a substance that has never been detected, but that is supposed to constitute approximately 25% of all the universe. But a simple test suggests that dark matter does not in fact exist. If it did, we would expect lighter galaxies orbiting heavier ones to be slowed down by dark matter particles, but we detect no such slowdown. A host of other observational tests support the conclusion dark matter is not there. The implications of this are nothing short of a revision of Einstein's theory of gravitation. So basically, we end up with a house of cards in terms of explaining motion, because Newton's gravity needed Einstein's gravity, and Einstein's gravity needed dark matter, and dark matter has now been falsified by credible physicists. So the theories of motion that most mainstream people believe are probably not true.
Damn. Well, I mean, you got receipts, Mark.
I mean, yeah, none of that's my purview at all. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
all right.
I just don't see an alternative. Like, is there like a flat Earth map?
It's a great question to ask, and this is another, I think, fallacy in the approach. The approach is that there is a claim that's been put forward by mainstream cosmology. Big Bang 13.8 billion years ago, spinning globe, and so forth. Falsifying that model does not require having a replacement model. I'll give an example.
Well, that's convenient.
No. I'll give an example. Imagine that we're taking a multiple choice test, all of us together. And the teacher says you have to agree on an answer. And you guys come to me and say, answer A is correct. And I say, look, I've spent all week on this. Answer A is definitely not correct. And you both look at me and you're like, Mark, you've got some good points. And then you say, Mark, is the answer B, C, or D then if it's not A? And I say, guys, I don't know. That's a bigger exploration. And then you both say to me, well, it's got to be A. It's illogical to say.
Yeah, but you could flip that too and be like, prove to me that A is correct. And if you can't prove Isaac Newton's theory from 1600s right, then it's wrong. It's like I feel like you're doing the same thing on the other side of the question.
No, because a positive claim has been put forward that Earth is a spinning globe with a radius value of roughly 4,000 miles at the equator, with gravity that works this way, and so forth. And if any part of that is not correct,
isn't flat Earth a positive claim? Isn't the Earth saying the Earth is flat a positive claim?
For some people, it is, and that's not what I'm doing. I'm saying there's a challenge to the spinning globe model, and as Danny and I were discussing before, it's actually impossible to have a comprehensive flat map because of all the restrictions I mentioned before.
Gotcha. All right, caller.
The flat map's a Mercator. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, I gotta let you go.
Well, the Mercator is a globe projected on something flat, whereas there are other versions like the Gleason map, which is different. And I'm saying we can't prove that.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Thanks, caller. Appreciate your call.
You.
That was a great call. Man, this is. I mean, I will say you are quite prepared, Mark. You got quotes and attributions, and you got everything.
Well, the hard part, Dan, before you go on, this is a really hard topic because your last caller made a lot of important points, but in one sentence, there were like 50 assumptions, which I totally understand. Like gravity says this and Earth's spinning this way. Those were all presuppositions that made his model work. And I get where he's coming from. But what I'm trying to do is let's look at each word in that sentence and see, is that correct?
Right.
And there are holes.
Right. Caller, you're on Low Value Mail. Who am I speaking with?
Hey, you're speaking to Jason.
Jason, how's it going, man?
You hear me?
Yep.
Going well. A couple of things I want to point out, especially with some of your previous callers. Anyone that says 8 inches per square mile, or per mile squared, you can instantly toss out.
Why is that?
So pretty much that's assuming they say it's accounting for the curvature of the Earth. It's accounting for a sphere as a parabola.
Right.
And those are just completely different shapes at any distance. At pretty much any distance, you're going to get a wrong number. If you're going to have that, it's going to be something with, you could use some trigonometric functions, or that'd probably be your best bet if you wanted to actually estimate the curvature of Earth as a sphere. And another thing that I wanted to get Mike's opinion on is different flat Earth models of a AE flat Earth map versus a multiple sun theories, if he knows about those.
Yeah, great question. I'm not sure. I'm open to all that stuff, but it's just, how can we verify it based on what we have now? I don't think we have enough data to have a comprehensive answer to that. So I think it's worth entertaining all these things, but we need to do science and observe, and we can't do that in many cases.
Do you think with the multiple sun theories, or with pictures like that, do you think there's any credibility to those, or do you chop those up to would you be willing to chop those up to optics, or just frauds? Or
Well, ancient cultures around the world have said all sorts of things about various suns and a time when the moon didn't exist. So I am generally open-minded, but in terms of direct evidence, the first thing that comes to mind is that documentary I mentioned, Crow 777's documentary, where he has looks at the lunar wave, what he calls, where it looks like the moon is in a watery substance. In that documentary, he uses his telescope to show what looks like to be a second bright body, meaning like an orangish sun. And he claims in that documentary that he was trying to control for any possible optical errors in it, but I'm not enough of an optical expert to say.
Yeah, caller.
See, that's
yeah. Does that answer your question?
No, that's answering most of my questions. Yeah. Have a good night.
All right, cool. Thanks, man.
Thanks.
All right, we're gonna try. We might be able to get to all the callers that are on the line. We will do our best. Thank you again for coming on, man. This has been great.
Sure.
I've enjoyed this very much. Please make sure to unmute yourself when I request you. We have limited time. All right, let's try somebody else. Shout out to Logan Vince Apophis.
Hello.
Hey, what's up? You're on Low Value Mail.
It's Tim again.
What's up, Tim?
Okay, so Mark, thank you for being here. Danny's awesome for having me over. I would like to ask. I got one question for both of you.
Go ahead,
Mark. Do you believe in the ice wall theory kind of thing?
I think that's the leading alternative model, but until we can test it properly, I'm really not sure. And that means we have to freely and privately explore all of Antarctica, which the Antarctic Treaty of 1959 restricts.
That's a great answer. I was not expecting such a good answer. Oh, man. Do you think that some sort of community of flat earthers should get together and like pay for some sort of drone to fly around to the past what you might conceive where the ice wall might be?
I love that idea. I just wonder how governments would handle flying objects in an area that's restricted.
Oh yeah, they're gonna shoot that shit down. Long before it gets there.
But what government would shoot it down? What government is actively flying around Antarctica? None of them are doing that.
I mean, they have research facilities down there, don't they?
Yeah, but in select locations.
Maybe they got a fucking dozen guys there taking ice samples, but there's no fucking F-16s or something. They don't have that shit there, right? Am I right or am I wrong?
I honestly don't know how their monitoring system works.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess, like, what would be the closest point to take off from to get there? Like southern Argentina?
South Africa, maybe?
Right, but that takes you to one part of Antarctica, and if we wanted to prove an ice wall or disprove it, we'd have to look at a lot more area than that.
You would need, like, a military-style drone. I don't think you could use, like, a drone you could just buy.
Okay, well, Danny, I need you to stop getting against me. Let me talk to Mark
not against.
for a minute.
Yeah, go ahead, man. Go ahead. You gotta be quick though, because I got a couple other callers.
What is the best? Okay, I'll be quick. What other way is, like? What do we do if you want to prove it? If all the flat earthers put a GoFundMe together and launch something to do, I think that's a good thing to do. Do you have a better idea?
No, I agree. I mean, there must be some rich, eccentric dude who has tons of money who could fund this no problem. Like a John McAfee type, something like that, who just has the resources. But obviously there's governments who are, that's what it sounds like, is they're going to prevent you from doing that.
Right. And the governments have resources too.
And they have infinite resources.
Yeah.
In the American government's case.
Yeah,
so
you think it's not even worth trying?
Well, it could be worth trying. The question is this, percentage of success.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. But I do think it's important.
Mark, if you truly believe the earth is flat and the whole world is lying to you, why not try to do something about it?
I mean, that was my question: is why haven't there been some sort of expedition down there? But I guess the thing is, you just can't.
Yeah, there are restrictions.
Okay, well, I will leave that there. I got one question for Danny now.
Yeah, go ahead.
Fucking Fox News. They really railroaded you last night. I got your YouTube, what is it, notes or whatever, that you were going to be on the Fox News.
Yeah.
And I watched the Fox News. Loved that you were on there.
Thank you.
But you spoke for all of like 5 minutes in the hour show.
I spoke as much as anybody.
No, you did not.
I don't know about that.
No, you did not.
I mean, Jimmy kind of just goes to. Watch that. I mean, I'll rewatch it, but Jimmy kind of just goes to everybody the same amount. It's just for every segment, but it did get cut for time.
He threw it. I will tell you, he threw it to you a lot because he knew you were the funniest of them all. But they all talked.
Yeah, that girl was fucking. She was chatty.
The girl was very chatty. Yes.
Yeah. Right. I just keep it short but sweet. But anyways, I gotta let you go, man. Thank you. All right. I think we got time for one or two more calls. Let's try this. Please unmute yourself quickly. And thank you very much, everybody, for joining the show. We'll be doing low value mail overtime if you want to join in 10 minutes. Hello.
Danielson, that's Bill from Philly.
Bill from Philly. What's up, man?
Hey. I wanted to ask your guest there what his thoughts on the biblical interpretation of the firmament was compared to, a flat Earth. I guess it's similar to a flat Earth, or a globus model. Like, what's he think about the Bible? And then I was going to lead into like giants, and does he believe in any of that kind of stuff, like evolution and?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, great questions. So there are debates about how the Bible should be interpreted, and there's certainly people who use the Bible and other scriptures, like the Book of Enoch, for example, to validate the idea of a flat plane. But I've heard other people take certain words and say, actually, it means this. So you get into questions of interpretation. But the notion of a firmament, which divides the waters above and the waters below, would match up with what many people believe is the flat Earth. And in terms of the notion of giants or just like titanic beings, I'm totally open to that sort of thing. There's a great YouTube channel called Stellium 7, run by Mike Wilkerson, who's been looking at geological formations. He started off, he lives in Spain, looking at this mountain that people say looks like an elephant, like a giant elephant. And he started exploring it as if he's an explorer going inside of an elephant, and found correlations between what you'd expect anatomically of an elephant and these caves. And he's been doing this with petrified hearts and all sorts of things. I'm not saying I know what's true, but there's, I think the minute we start to question the mainstream cosmology, and if Earth is not a sphere, then you could have giant beings walking around a massive plane that extends well beyond Earth.
Interesting.
Oh, that is interesting. And what'd you say the name? His name was Mike Wilkerson.
Mike Wilkerson. Stellium 7 is his YouTube channel, and he's got lots of videos on his explorations of geology.
Oh, cool. Okay. Well, that sounds good, man. I appreciate your time, and I love hearing from you guys. Take care. God bless.
Thanks for calling in. All right, let's take another call here. Thank you again, Mark, for coming on.
Sure.
All right. I think this is going to be last call of the night right here. Sorry, the other caller. We're not going to get to you. Hello. Last call of the night.
Very cool. Interesting show, guys. Thanks for doing this. So a couple of things. What I've always found interesting, and even the last caller kind of touched on it, was like, there's that kind of biblical component of the flat Earth stuff, and it's almost like you're kind of trading one authority for another, kind of, well, I don't trust this authority, but I'm going to trust this, and this one is for sure, and you're kind of all in on that. And if you're talking about like, energy fields, or the idea that like maybe there's there's something to like the idea of torsion or spheres coming out of like a center and kind of forming in this like reverse cyclone on either side of itself, and almost forming in like this donut shape that as it cools, it adds like a hollow point at the top and a hollow point at the bottom, which a lot of people point up to the idea of like the flat earth and why we're not able to fly directly over the poles, because we would suddenly see that there's a hole at the top or a hole at the bottom of the earth. Have you, Mark, kind of rectified, I guess, one conspiracy theory against another, where, you know, there's kind of things that are even within the conspiracy world that, you know, at odds with each other?
Yeah, the way I think about it is, you know, some people will believe in flat Earth solely because of the biblical interpretation. I see the ancient scriptures as just additional data points, but there's a lot of modern science that we haven't even gone through today that challenges the spinning globe. And to me, it's just when you bring all the evidence together, there's a challenge to the mainstream cosmology. And what you were referring to is what some would call ether cosmology. I've heard it referred to as that, where basically Earth is a topographical plane which serves as what's known as a block domain wall, or this inertial plane, where there's a toroidal field that goes through the center of Earth, which is the North Pole in the flat Earth model, and it creates this toroidal shape. These are very technical scientific discussions, and I'm not qualified to say I know for certain which it is, but it sounds elegant, because it matches other areas of physics to have that kind of a toroidal field where we see everywhere else. So when I heard that, I perked up a little bit. That sounded interesting to me, but I would love to see more validation.
Interesting. You also mentioned earlier, like you were delving into work on consciousness and stuff, and like you mentioned the Mandela effect. Am I correct in thinking like you were almost implying that like with a change in the general consensus of what people believe, that the actual reality would change with it? So like if there are these fluxes in times where people believe the earth is flat or the earth is round, that there's a potential for the earth to actually change with that? And if so, then isn't the idea of like trying to prove it one way or the other kind of like a fool's errand?
Yeah, a lot of good points you just made there. And I think there is a potential problem with the false dichotomy of flat or sphere, because it does leave out other possibilities. And that's why I try not to latch on to flat, even though I think there's a lot of value in understanding what people are actually saying with the flat model. With regard to the Mandela effect, and basically what you're describing is consciousness affecting reality, I'm open to all of that because there's a phenomenon known as psychokinesis. And this is all the stuff I started with in my first book. Psychokinesis is mind impacting matter without actually touching anything. And there's something known as the Global Consciousness Project, and it was a spin out of work done at Princeton University, run by the former dean of engineering there, where they set up random number generator machines all over the world. So these are machines that spit out zeros and ones in a random fashion. And what the experimenters do, because it should be random, it should be 50% ones, 50% zeros after a long amount of time. It should approach that. The experimenters look at what happens to the machines when there's a major global event, like 9/11, Princess Diana's death. And what they find repeatedly is that there is a deviation from randomness statistically. It's really small, but it's highly significant. The implication is potentially that when you have a large scale shift in human consciousness, the physical reality shifts. The question is, how much does it shift? What is there a tipping point whereby the shape of Earth would shift based on human consciousness? And then another side point here is the Mandela effect related to our consciousness, or is it just part of the reality that we're in, almost like a glitch in the matrix, where there's another intelligence that's shifting reality beyond our individual consciousness? I think they're all possibilities.
Interesting. Last question, if I can get it
go ahead.
Quick, but interesting answer. Have you considered the idea of like simulation theory, or the idea of maybe like a projected hologram where on one plane it's flat but it's projecting at 3D, and you know, trying to rectify what that might mean for measuring, you know, something in more of a scientific materialist way, when in fact, if it is true that it's not material at all?
Yeah, it's a great point. And my metaphysics is that nothing is actually material. It's all just within our consciousness, and we interpret matter. So when I touch my chair, I feel what I've interpreted as a chair. But if I close my eyes, what is it really? It's literally just a sensation. in my consciousness that I've reverse engineered and done mental gymnastics to say it's a chair. So we interpret matter, but I think everything is a manifestation of consciousness, in which case I agree with you that there are big problems in just sticking with like a unitary narrative. And it's probably way more complex. And the last thing I'll say here is that I have a book on UFOs called An End to Upside Down Contact. And I talk a little bit about a secret space program. When you hear people talk about, they were on Mars and they saw the sphere, almost unanimously, they say Earth is a spinning globe. But I found one secret space program survivor. And by the way, these people all underwent MK Ultra. That's what they claim. So who knows what we can actually believe. But one of them made a comment very similar to what the caller just said, which is, he's like, it's so much more complex than round or flat because of human consciousness and multidimensional. I'm paraphrasing, but he's saying exactly what you're saying.
Interesting. You don't remember his name?
I have the footnote in my book. I would have to look it up for you.
Gotcha. Well,
you know what? I can find it while we're talking. If you want to keep talking, Danny, I can find it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you know what? Yeah, you find it. And we're gonna wrap this up. While you're looking for that, thank you very much to Mark and everybody who joined the show. If you want to catch the Low Value Mail after show while Mark finds this footnote of this crazy thing he just said, you can sign up patreon.com/lowvaluemail, MAIL, or join the channel. I know some of you aren't able to for some reason. I don't know why, but you can go to Patreon. And the link will be there, or the link's in the community tab here. And we'll be starting we're starting late. We went a little over time, but it was well worth it. I hope you all enjoyed this.
Okay, found it.
Let's go.
This was endnote 33 in chapter 8. Okay, the guy's name is Og Tellez, AUGTELLEZ, and the YouTube video where he says it, the title is "Secret Space Program and Flat Earth Dome with Og Tellez." And he says this quote around 1 hour and 29 minutes through 1 hour and 32 minutes into the video.
All right. Well, can't get more definitive than that. Thank you, caller. Appreciate it, man.
Appreciate it. Yeah, thank you.
Later. All right, Mark, thank you very much. What's the best place for people to find you, find your work, all that stuff?
They can find me at my website. It's markgober.com, MARKGOBER.com. All my books are on Amazon in hard copy, Kindle, and Audible formats.
Amazing. Thank you so much for coming on. This was a really fun one. Thank you to our lovely producer, Mark, and thank you to you all. I'll catch some of you in the after show. Otherwise, we will see you next week. Good night, everybody. My shit heroic. Empathic abilities, yeah, my face be also stoic. Fleet blow up, nigga, that just means I'm working. They see me as a leader, so that's why I'm Captain Kirkin. These tracks from the stars, that much is for certain. You can fit his hit if you up or if you hurtin'. I'm raising my stock, not talking my feet in some Birkin. Number Johnny 5 got a fucking short circuit. Bring the track to life when I spit phenomenal. When I hit, she feel that shit in her abdominals. These rappers make me laugh like comic view, they comical. You know I got a ball out, I hit the track running just like Sonic do. They don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah, they was trying to get me on my hype shit. Yeah, they don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah, and they tried to down me on some KO type shit. Yeah, they don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah, now we pulling up fresh on some flight shit. Ha. They don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah, they don't wanna turn on my light switch. They don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah, they was trying to get me on my hype shit. Yeah, they don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah, and they tried to down me on some KO type shit.